Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to upstate New York as the Formula College World Championship heads to Watkins Glen for what is sure to be an absolute barn burner here on the boot layout. I'll be your host, Cade Corbin, to bring you flag-to-flag coverage. I'm joined up here getting ready for this one with Jackson Lambros. Jackson, what do you think we're going to see tonight?
I think we're going to see the same product we've seen all season long, Cade, and that's really aggressive, really entertaining, back and forth. You know, natural road course racing. We got a really good taste of it at Road Atlanta just a couple weeks ago. And even then, you go and look at the tight technicality that we saw there, but you still had guys throwing haymakers a couple laps in and a great set of freight trains going back and forth. I really think with how this track races, with how much IndyCar drivers, both virtual and real life, have praised this track, it is a challenging course. It's a rewarding course. And it is an absolute incubator when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing.
And I think we're going to see quite a lot of that. This is the 5th road course of this season, so these drivers have had plenty of experience testing exactly what those limits are of this Dallara IR18 IndyCar, so I can guarantee it, they are going to be right on those limits. We ran this race back in Season 4 with the F4 car, and a couple of guys to watch were Muhammad Alif and Clint Halterman. I think those are going to be two of the guys to watch, and especially Muhammad Alif.
Again, the big mantra here is Muhammad Alif. What can he do to potentially build that championship gap, Cade? But as we saw in our pre-race notes, he's got a little bit of trouble on the back half of Iowa. Will be starting from the back of the grid. Now, he still has to qualify that car to even make the show, and he'll want to do that anyway, and we expect to see him at least close to the front row, hoping to get extra points from that pole position. But we are going to see what he can do to gain that championship gap back up and work his way to the front of the field. He's absolutely a guy you're going to want to look out for today.
Coming into this race, he has 50 points on Ball State teammate Cale Davidson. That gap was just a couple of points a few weeks ago, and Alif has put together some solid performances, but there's been a little bit of rockiness in there, which is why he will be starting this race from the tail end of the field. Clint Halterman, the other guy that I mentioned, has run really well here. In addition to Alif, he's also run really well recently across pretty much all of the CIL series. Halterman right now sits 3rd in points, nearly 80 back of Alif, but there are still 4 races left in the season, so I have to believe Halterman might not be completely out of this one yet.
No, and this is the first time that we've seen Alif truly under pressure. We've seen these Verstappen-esque performances of, if you will, of starting at the front of the field and not looking back the entire time and just utter dominance. We've seen him run up front at Iowa and be under pressure in that way. But what are we going to see when Muhammad Alif rolls off from the back of the field? How aggressive is he going to be off at the start? The big thing that he needs to keep in mind right now is damage control. He's already got this championship fight exactly where he wants. It's just keeping the wings on the car, keeping the wheels on the car, and staying out of trouble. But gaining points is going to be really, really important, and gaining position is obviously going to be something that helps, especially if it is Cale or Glen.
And I think staying out of trouble is going to be the absolute key. We saw a lot of really competitive drivers start anywhere between 6th and 26th at Road Atlanta, and those drivers saw themselves get caught up in other drivers' incidents, get caught up off track, struggle to recover from a spin. You know, by the end of the race, maybe you can get up to about that 5th, 6th, 7th position, but it could open the door for some other drivers to compete for the win. We talked about Glen Halterman. How about Cale Davidson? How about Wyatt Burton still looking for his first road course win of the season? So it's going to be really interesting to see qualifying, getting ready to start here, practice finishing up, and it looks to me like we have 32 entries on deck for this one, which would be one of our largest fields of the season. Could indicate that a lot of drivers are really excited about Watkins Glen.
I want to remind you guys at home, if you have any interest in joining us, give us a shout in the Discord chat or check our description, because you can join in on the fun, whether you're a student or an alumni, and rep your school, rep your team, as we actually allow up to 60 people to qualify, 40 people make the cut. We haven't really gotten to that 40-man cut just yet, but always great to see some big fields, especially at a place that's as exciting and as historic as this place right here, upstate New York, Watkins Glen.
So we're going to go ahead and take a look at qualifying now. These drivers get 3 laps to see just how fast they can be. A few guys starting to roll off, so we'll get you that here in a second. Looks to me like let's take a look at Muhammad Alif, shall we? Sorry, we're trying to get this sorted out here, but Muhammad Alif, going to be a guy we know, even though he'll have to start this race from the rear, he is going to lay down a solid qualifying lap this week in that yellow paint scheme. Looks to me like a little bit of a Penske tribute. If we can ride along with this Ball State machine, we will be able to kind of take you through a lap here. So this is the section called the boot. This is the boot layout. This little section here, if you look at the track map, we'll see that in a second, but it looks kind of like the country of Italy comes around this getting into the heel of the boot. It's a sharp right-hander with almost what feels like a little bit of banking. You want to hit that apex really late and swing all the way back to the right. It's more than 180-degree hairpin, sets you up down this long straightaway, then a sharp right-hander, and this is going to be almost immediately followed by an uphill section into a tight left-hander. So what you're going to see here, all the way down to second gear, nearly another hairpin, before swinging all the way out to that wall to get as much momentum as he can. Now, this is going to finish his warm-up lap. So he's ideally has those tires hot. He's going to be at the optimum temperature. He's going to carry as much momentum as he can off of the final turn, go as fast as he can down the front stretch, and this should be his hot lap. So you see here, he's going to hard on the brakes right about that 100 marker, all the way over the curb, and get that car all the way over the curbs on both the right and the left. Now into the S's, take it to the right, now back to the left. Hold it there for a second and then back to the right again. And this is one of the most crucial parts of this racetrack, one of the fastest parts, all the way up into 6th gear. Then right here, this is going to be a really interesting spot to watch in traffic, the bus stop. You see 1, 2, 3, 4 tight corners right in a row, still in 5th gear, downshift to 4th. This section we call the carousel because it takes you round and round, and now Alif goes back into the boot, this time with those hotter tires. So definitely a lot of really tricky spots. I think what makes the Glen so exciting is that there's no lack of heavy braking zones. And if you've watched any road course races with us before this season, you know that heavy braking zones mean passing opportunities, which means plenty of chances, like Jackson said at the top of the show, to see side-by-side racing. Now, coming out of that boot section, Alif going to be through the final chunk here. And if he can get the power down, this looks like it should be a pretty good lap, as he's going to wind it through the final turn all the way down to that curb and then back up to the left. These Indy cars get a little unstable over those curbs. Takes a lot of car control to hit those cleanly. And that lap for Muhammad Alif, a 125.86, as he's the first one to complete a qualifying lap.
Yeah, and what I like about that lap there, Kate, is we see Moody and Duncan get on the board. Rest of the guys now going to try and fill in. What I like about that lap, confidence on corner exit. You're asking so much from these Firestone Firehawks, and you're trying to figure out just that right time to optimize your line to carry as much speed as possible and get your right foot down at the best time possible, because you've got, as we can see here, there's not a lot of outside curbing there if you end up going wide. It's grass and it's Armco. You've got a couple of areas as you kind of rejoin the NASCAR area where that's a possibility, but as we're working our way over here, you combine that with just how much elevation change Watkins Glen offers. You know, heavy braking zones, and when you're looking at this kind of cookie cutter style track top down, it's like, not really sure where I could see that, but with so many downhill braking zones, you're asking so much from the front of these tires. Lockups are so easy if you overdrive, and in these cars that can instantly bring the back end around. But we're seeing a lot of confidence from these guys. We see it in our Muhammad Alif. We've seen it in Wyatt Burton all season long. He comes to the line as he does not good enough. Just half a second back and just a little bit of a shimmy there off of turn number 1. Well, Davidson.
Yeah, now taking a look at the 2-car running a white paint scheme this week, a little bit different than the red and black that we typically see out of those Ball State cars. Cale Davidson, to me, is a guy that is looking at this race with a lot of opportunity. See, he's already second on the board, trying to see if he can get a little bit better with another flying lap here. Still 5 minutes left to attempt a few laps. And so Davidson's a guy who, if he can qualify up front and stay there, he's now putting himself in a position where he has the rest of the field having to chase him, right? Not just Alif getting his way through the field, but Ben Fiore been really good all season. Wyatt Burton been really good all season. The rest of the top 10, I would say, has a shot to maybe hang with Davidson a little bit. So Davidson now is going to find himself looking in the mirror. You know, he's going to have to play a little bit of defense, not just blocking on track, but also staying ahead of the 8-ball when it comes to strategy.
Lucas Moody hanging on, working out of the carousel and back down the hill into this third sector. Another thing we don't really talk about is we see a big slide there, working his way back up the hill there in the 13. We got to talk about tire management, because you compare this to a Road America or a Road Atlanta, and yeah, those are road courses, and they have heavy braking zones, but very rarely on this track are you holding the wheel perfectly straight. And even then, when you are managing the tire temps, because you're leaning so much on the aerodynamic grip of these Dallara IR18s, but you are constantly putting these tires under load, whether it's heavy braking or heavy consistent cornering. So one of the big things here, not so much suspension geometry and managing wing angles, tire pressure is where the setup starts, and it's what's going to be so important as this race evolves, as the tire wear evolves as well. How are they going to react in terms of heat and pressure? Because if they go bad, you're going to lose a lot of pace in a lot of places here.
Now taking a look at Jake Cummings, as he's going to slide off the final turn, bring that car home. On his first lap, he was P6, and it looks to me like he was going to stay there. I believe he improved his time just a little bit, but not his position. He's now taking a look at Riley Birkins for New England College. Drew Williams slides up into the 7th spot here. Pretty good run for that 123 car. You know, he's having, I think, a pretty underrated season there, that 123 car.
At the time of his life last weekend, running real strong among the Unks, shall we say, at Iowa. Has proven pace, though, on the road courses as well. We've seen it in numerous parts of this season. Gonna have to see what he can do in the 127. Consistently been the top alumni, I will say that.
Yeah, he and Clint Halterman, I think, have been the two really leading the alumni division. That's reflected in the point standings. Only two in the top 10 points right now who are in that alumni classification. So Drew Williams, Clint Halterman potentially set to battle it out for the alumni win, while the students could be contending for not only the student classification win, but also the overall the overall race win. So
and again, We got
Go
to
ahead.
mention that, okay, because we're getting into crunch time here. You could argue we have been since Iowa with a really, really big batch of points there. But this is where championships are made or where leads are broken. Again, a Leaf already comes into this weekend with his back against the wall. Drew Williams is still feeling all of the pressure from his alumni opponents right now. So it's all about not cracking under pressure, putting your car in the right positions, and choosing the right battles. And that thought process all starts pretty much now with the end of qualifying and where you are when you are receiving the cards and how you're going to deal with them.
Yeah, where you roll off is absolutely going to be key. We talk about as many passing zones as there are on this track, but that also means you've got blocking zone. That also means you have opportunities to take advantage of track position. And, if you want to manage your tires a little bit more, be better on the back end of the run, you can do that here. If you want to save a little bit of fuel and try to do a little bit of a short pit, maybe you want to run longer on the alternate tires, do primary tires. And that's another thing these guys have to go into play. We have two options for tires. We have a softer tire, we have a harder tire. A softer tire has red sidewalls, and it's going to wear out just a little bit quicker than the other tire. You've got a lot of grip at the beginning of the run, but if it works as planned, you don't have so much by the end of the run. Those black tires, primary, should stay just a little bit more consistent. So we'll see. These guys are going to try to figure out which tire is better and play a little bit of fuel strategy to remain on that tire. Let's now take a look at the track. This is the layout and what we're looking at for Watkins Glen. Jackson, if you tell us a little bit about what we're setting up to witness today.
Just a stone's toss from the Finger Lakes here in upstate New York. 11 turns, first opened in 1956, first home of the American Grand Prix, which has had so many different venues, but beloved by IndyCar, sports car, and NASCAR drivers alike. You look back at some of the legendary drivers who have been here, even in recent years. Juan Pablo Montoya in that legendary qualifying lap for Chip Ganassi Racing is what instantly comes to mind. The great battle between Marcos Ambrose and Brad Keselowski, even SVG and Chris Buescher last year. What that stands out to for me, though, guys, is you've got opportunities to really, really not just chuck it up the inside, but get over-unders going. And I think we're going to see a lot of reserve driving at the start of this race, Cade, because, again, you know what's on the line in terms of championship points and how you're setting things up for the next handful of races. But I think once we get closer to the checkered flag, it's going to be a powder keg, and we're going to see some really, really big moves here in certain parts of the racetrack as we get closer to the end.
I may actually have to disagree with you a little bit there. I think it could be from the beginning. I mean, if any previous races are going to be any sort of indication, then we could see some calamity off into turn one, especially being a very sharp right-hander. Let's go ahead and take a look at those qualifying results. Qualifying has finished. And sitting on the pole for this race are Muhammad Ali from Ball State University, and just to his outside, his teammate, Cale Davidson, in the 2 car. Rolling off in P3, it's Ben Fiore from Marist College. Really solid qualifying effort for that car. He starts alongside Mr. Excitement from Trine, Wyatt Burton. Rolling off 5th, it's my man from the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Ryan Whitlock, and to his outside, Jake Cummings from Converse. In P7, it's that alumni we talked about, Drew Williams from Clemson. He starts next to Lucas Moody from Ball State. And rounding out your top 10, it's Keegan Kallick from St. Clair College. Fantastic run in his rookie season. And Clint Halterman in the 100 car from UNC Charlotte.
Row 6 here, Christian Hill gets us started in 11th alongside Adam Wilby for Clemson. In the Snake Eye spot, Dylan Beatty for Ball State alongside Esteban Munoz, who we have not seen up front at all. What can he do here from 14th? Aiken Lamar for Howard Community College, the little team that could, 094, starting in 15th, alongside Riley Perkins for New England College. 17th, Thomas Crump for Clemson University, had really, really good running at Iowa last weekend. He's alongside Andrew Voigt for Penn State. P19, Nick Henley for Ball State University. Again, another Ball State heavy grid alongside his teammate Jacob Dick in the 22, rolling off 20. Rounded out here, Starting in 21st, it is Jason Wallet from Drexel University alongside Hami Placencia
from Fisher College, making his first start of the season. Rolling off 23rd, it's Grant Schiller from St. Clair College. He'll start alongside Andrew Burrow from Clemson in row 12. Back in 25th, it's our guy Marlo Duncan from MSOE. He starts alongside Adrian Tubakovic in the 38 car. Back in 27th, it is Nick Stockner from Clemson University. He starts alongside Joseph Grijalva from Purdue. And rounding out your top 30 on the grid, it's Carson Wallers from Paul Smith's College alongside Zolkir Mirza from St. Clair.
Couple of new names and round out faces here. Yep. Garrett Greathouse starting in 31st with Caden Hughes in 32nd, although you can pretty much put everyone forward here, Cade, as we will see our Muhammad Alif rolling off back here in 32nd.
We do want to mention Caden Hughes has not made the minimum qualifying time. Unfortunately, all drivers between qualifying and practice were asked to turn a lap faster than a minute 30. And Caden Hughes qualified a 1:33.6, so he will not be competing, which means we will only see 31 cars here rolling off for the Esports Eagle Classic at the Glen, presented by Texas A&M of Texarkana. As warm-up is getting finished up, so we'll see these cars gridded up. All right, Jackson, you've seen the starting lineup. Let's go ahead and make some picks. Who do you got your eye on for today?
I mean, Clint Halterman, I think, has been looking for a really good result, especially on the road courses. I might have stolen your pick there. You've got the look like it. There we go.
Yep.
Oh, man. I mean, outside of that, I mean, Whitlock is technically the showrunner right now, but again, we saw how strong he was running at Road Atlanta, so really, really exciting to see what he can do. A little bit further back than I think he might have wanted, but also your guys got a really, really good shot.
I was going to go ahead with Clint Halterman, but to a point that you just made, I think Whitlock isn't the only one who's maybe a little bit deeper in the field than he would have expected. You know, I'm looking at Clint Halterman back in 10th. He's usually been kind of a top 5 qualifier. A few guys a little bit deep in the field. Thomas Crump, we've seen him run really well. Jason Wallet sometimes around the 15th position. Yeah, he's starting back in 21st. And that's a product, like we've talked about, a little bit of a bigger starting field. Christian Hill running part-time this season. He's out there. We mentioned Hamid Placencia, Garrett Greathouse, I believe just his second start of the season. So we've got a lot of cars in here. It shifted a few guys back a little bit, and it means we're going to see a lot of really fast cars, really competitive drivers having to make their way through the field.
Let me put something else in here for you, Cade, because I know I've said this like 9 times already, but our Muhammad Alif is starting this race with 30 cars in front of him. Your bet, over under 10th and a half, where do you think he's going to finish?
Finishing the race, I honestly think it's going to be one of two scenarios. I think he's either going to be battling for the lead or he's going to be in the garage by lap 5. If he can avoid early race calamity, he's going to be able to make his way up to the front. He's got pace. We know he can get through traffic. Lap traffic isn't competitive traffic, but he knows how to pass cars. Getting around 10th, 9th, 8th when he's lapping them at the end of previous races. So he knows how to make passes. I think if he can survive, he's going to get there. But even if he gets near the front, that doesn't guarantee that he's going to win this race. So we are rolling off now. You see Alif in that yellow car pulls off to the side, which means our front row will be Cale Davidson and Ben Fiore. Fiore for Marist will lead us to the green. That puts Ryan Whitlock on the outside of row 2. And just behind him, it'll be his OWR teammate in Drew Williams, working through the last couple of corners here, getting ready to take the green for the Esports Eagle Classic presented by Texas A&M of Texarkana. That iRacing safety car is going to pull off to the right. It is Cale Davidson and Ben Fiore to the line at Watkins Glen, and we are green flag racing.
And it gives the advantage to Ben Fiore on the inside. Trouble early here.
Sorry. Destruction at the rear of the field. For the moment, we stay green. I believe that was Zahir Mirza in the 24 involved in it. Here's another look. You see Alif sneaking by on the inside. That's Joseph Grijalva, just doesn't quite get going. Calamity for Mirza and Carson Wallers from Paul Smith's College.
I think he had too much space. Ooh, Davidson.
Sorry, Burton made a move for the lead, didn't quite work. He got off track. Cale Davidson capitalized. Ben Fiore mows a little bit of grass there. He slipped up a touch on the start, and that's allowed Davidson to open just a couple of car lengths as Fiore slots in a second. Now it's Whitlock third as Burton slides back to fourth.
Yeah, Cade, you were right. Fangs out driving instantly to start here as we had a really, really bold move there from Cale Davidson, or excuse me, from Wyatt Burton trying to get by in the chicane. We see the eagerness further back there as Moody tries to work a way around Burton. It's Cummings and others 2x2 further back here. And as you called it, Cade, Fangs out driving from the start.
Yeah, these guys are not ones to lay back, and something must have happened to that 26 car. He's dropping like a rock. He's now conceded a spot to Cummings, conceded a spot to Moody, under fire now from Williams and Halterman. I don't know exactly what happened, but possibly a little bit of aero damage on that 26 for Trine University. Now Halterman
to the inside
of Williams.
Onto the binders here. A little bit of a late lunge. Almost gets into the back of Burton in front of him. Working the absolute limits in that spatial awareness. Watch further ahead as Moody and Cummins go at it for fourth, just a little bit further down onto the bus stop. This is the weirdest part for Indy cars. It's fine for the stock cars and the GTs. You're asking so much from the suspension. Williams to the outside of Burton now. Backs out of it. It's a rough place to get it done here, Cade.
Yeah, he's got to be careful because you can see that yellow car. Dylan Beatty has every opportunity to close up, especially early in this race. These guys all on top of each other. You make a mistake like we saw from Burton, you're going to go back not one, not two, but 3 or 4 spots. Burton's finally done damage control. He's managed to stick himself in front of the 123, but he rolled off in, I believe, the 4th position, now back to 6th for Wyatt Burton.
Big wiggle there for Williams. He might have gone around. No, he gathered it up, but just dropping that back left wheel in is good enough to drop maybe 3-4 positions. I think that's Burkins on the inside. And just like that, he loses it to Munoz now, excuse me, but goes from 5th to 10th with just a little bit of a mistake. That's how tight of a field this is, especially at the beginning of this race. One small mistake like that can cost you so much in these stages. And now Esteban Munoz continues to work forward. Looking down Crump, big swipe to the outside now, almost gets into the gearbox onto the binders.
And that's going to allow Munoz to get away there. Sorry, sneaking away from the 016 of Thomas Crump. Munoz on a little bit of a charge here. Started all the way back in the 14th spot, so up to 9th in the early going, able to stay out of some calamity, capitalize on it, and the driver from Florida now up well inside the top 10.
Not a guy we've seen so much on the back half of this season, but has been very strong. Good run here from Williams trying to get by Crump. Up ahead, Wyatt Burton versus Moody side by side.
And this is Burton trying to win back some of those spots. Gets put on the outside of the first hairpin in the boot section, but that's going to give him the inside here for that kind of banked corner that we talked about as they head through that elevation change. Should be able to get momentum off the corner on Halterman. Halterman able to maximize the runoff, though he may be clear into the next right-hander.
I think we should call this the whole middle sector of the track Switchback City, because no matter what line you really run, low or high, you have another kind of inverse corner to make it up and kind of have that outside line become your inside line. And I think why a lot of the guys that do, more NASCAR or more Cup racing love this so much is so many of these corners drive like an oval. You have such long parabolic style corners, a lot of banking to help you out, so it feels very much like home for a lot of these guys, like a handful of different short track corners maybe.
One other incident we do have a little bit of an update on the first lap going into the bus stop. Keegan Halleck got into the back of Christian Hill. Those are 2 names you don't see in the top 10. Both came into this race with high expectations. Watkins Glen, a favorite track of Hill.
Oh, trouble! Yeah, man, that was a replay. Come on, Lambros.
I think that's
exactly
oh my God,
what a godsend
Christian Hill had, though, as he launches back into traffic, and I believe he may have clipped. Looks like actually everybody did get through, but as we look at the 085 from St. Mary's, and yeah, incredibly close call.
Threaded the needle there. Scary, scary stuff for anybody going through, especially when that car is going through broadside compared to everybody else. but he continues on now. How about Benjamin Fiore, who started on the front row, cleared Ryan Whitlock and Jake Cummings, though, and is now trying to reel in Cale Davidson. How about your guy, though, Cade? Ryan Whitlock.
Yeah, Whitlock up
solid
to
running in
P3.
third.
He's had some bad luck at the very beginning of these road course races.
Oh, yeah.
Road course races. He's had to spend many a lap clawing his way back from an incident at the beginning of the race. He's gotten through 5 laps. I'm going to knock on some wood here that it doesn't happen, but if he can stay out of trouble here for another 5 laps or so, he may be out of the woods, and he can set his sights on Ben Fiore and Cale Davidson. Right now, keeping it down to a 4-second gap. That's close enough where you might be able to make some time up with strategy. You know, you got to have the raw pace to do it, but really within striking distance with still over 53 laps to go.
Looks like a little bit further back there, Moody, Halterman, and Burton still staying very, very bunched up, as saw some side-by-side running from them into the bus stop. This is a trio of guys we saw, if you rewind the clock just a couple of weeks. These guys were going at it at Road Atlanta, and I feel like there's, I wouldn't call it a level of respect between one another, Cade, but definitely an understanding of limits on one another, where they're going to attack, how they're going to treat each other in certain areas of this course. But I think what that allows is very, very good, very intense, very close racing between Moody, Halterman, and Burton.
Well, that's one of the advantages of running a league, you know, is you get to know some of the same guys.
Right.
It's different than just hopping on an iRacing circuit. You know who you're racing against. You know, okay, Clint Halterman, I think, is a guy who's going to recognize that there's 52 laps to go. You don't have to push. You can chill out a little bit, right? And so knowing that, you can count on that, right? You can count that maybe he's not going to dive bomb. It might be a little bit harder for Halterman to sell a dummy, but at the same time, it also leads to a little more respect, right? A little more close racing. So as these three spend more and more time getting around each other, you know, Burton is a little bit newer to the Formula College World Championship scene, but Halterman and Moody have been racing each other for seasons. Burton now almost has 2 full seasons under his belt, and so these guys are going to be able to race around each other and do it incredibly competitively. And honestly, that just makes it better for us fans. Here's a move from Halterman on the outside of Moody. Going to be hard to carry momentum, and Moody's going to clear him. Now Halterman
tries to switch back now.
Crossover.
Round the outside, not done yet, though, because now the script flips. This could let Wyatt Burton go through. It does!
Burton to the inside, and he's going to set himself up for the inside to the next corner. If he can drive it in deep, he might be able to get Halterman and Moody. Yes, he does. He hits the apex, slides the rears, but he's clear of both of them.
We got to talk about tire strategy right now. This is absolute worst case scenario for Wyatt Burton, who just wants to set sail on those primaries and clear these guys on those faster red-walled alternatives. Both of those guys need to get a move on and clear him so fast. And by the way, all this battle has done is brought Munoz and Williams further back into this battle to the inside.
That's Clint Halterman looking on Lucas Moody. Esteban Munoz right behind up to the 8th spot. Halterman sends it into the corner, gets it to stick, clears Lucas Moody for the 6th spot. Now it's Munoz in 8th. Maybe he's going to capitalize and do something of the same thing.
There's your tire altercation on the right-hand side of your screen. It felt like a little bit of a surrender there from Lucas Moody. Kind of like, I'll give you the position, but I'll have plenty of opportunities to swing back here. But as I say that, Munoz trying to sell a little bit of a dummy there into the bus stop. Lucas is not buying it.
And while we had that those tire compounds up, it seemed to me like there was a little bit of a flip there. You see just how much Wyatt Burton has driven away from Halterman. Less than a lap ago, they were battling side by side. There's Wyatt Burton. It's Williams and Munoz side by side behind them, but Burton was right in the thick of that battle, and as soon as it hit about lap 7, it seemed to me like those prime tires came in, the grip wore out on the alternates, and that's allowed Burton to drive away. He and Cummings are on the prime tire. They should be faster than the top 3, but they've already got about 7 seconds of a gap. We'll see if they can make that up before the first pit stop.
I need to check with Lee Kane, our producer, and the rest of the squad on what track limits kind of are justified at here at the Glen, because we know guys like running wide where you have that sea of concrete, be it turn 1, or as we see here in this back section, kind of how the Cup guys run it. I'm not entirely sure how that entirely works as Wyatt Moody works his way into the pits.
Lucas Moody is in the pits. Sorry, I was about to say something there.
curious as to why it didn't look like there was damage.
It looks like if you back on track limits, if you get all 4 tires on one side of the curb, on the non-track side, if that makes sense, but all 4 tires have to go over the curb, and iRacing will give you a single incident point, and that is basically your penalty. If you go a little bit too far off, you may have to serve a time penalty. But you see right there, Wyatt Burton kept those right side tires on the curb. The left sides were off of it, but the right sides, as long as they're still touching that red and yellow curbing, he is still considered inbounds. It's all fair, no penalty.
Back to tires really quick here, though, Cade, and in kind of talking about strategy decisions, I think with this constant load these tires are under, you compare this to, I think for me, the biggest polar opposite of this course is Road America, as we see our Muhammad Ali clearing there Dylan Beatty. Oh, maybe not so. Runs a little bit wide. Those two might get at it. But really quick here, just, again, with how much these tires are under wear, but under, use. There's constant turning here compared to, say, a Road America or a Long Beach. So what you're putting on your wheels is even more paramount because of that, because it is the number one source of your grip. And kind of adding on to that, you've got a couple straightaways here, the run up to the bus stop, and here going into turn 1. Not a lot of opportunities for you to necessarily lift and coast, though.
Yeah, and on top of that, the corners that you do have are incredibly high speed, right? There's not a lot of these super deep hairpins. You're having to stay flat out through some really fast, twisty section of this track, like the S's, like we just saw there. They're really not out of the gases up front. They're side by side going into the bus stop. That's Esteban Munoz lunges on Drew Williams, gets the spot by a car length. But yeah, even through there, through the carousel here, you're really, really fast, and you're staying on the throttle while you're doing it. And that just tears more and more grip off of those tires.
So again, it's asking, do you go at this point in the race for the faster, alternative tires? You're going to have so much more grip, but you're going to chew through that rubber so much quicker than if you stay on the primaries. It seems like it's the choice for now. We haven't quite seen the trade-off yet. I'll tell you what, it seemed to work right now for our Muhammad Ali. Started back of the row here, has already cleared Drew Williams and Crump for 8th. So already just 9 laps in, the kid from Ball State finds himself back in the top 10.
One thing to pay attention to see about these tires is Ryan Whitlock versus Jake Cummings. Whitlock right now about 5 seconds back the lead. There he is. Cummings still about 6.5 seconds back there in the purple car. But Whitlock's on the alternates. Cummings is on the primaries. And if Cummings can bring that gap down, that'll tell these drivers, hey, those black tires, they are better at the end of the run. They come in pretty soon. They may be the tire that we want to stay on. Whereas if Ryan Whitlock is able to maintain this gap, and he's able to do it comfortably, that tells these drivers, okay, the red tire is pretty good. I can sustain that amount of grip for a long run. I want to be on the red tires. So right now, the difference between the two about 3 seconds. It was 1.5 seconds a couple of laps ago. So if that interval keeps coming down, we could see a lot of drivers want to be on the primary tire.
So when is that trade-off going to occur, and how quick is that drop-off going to be for the red-walled alternatives compared to the primaries? Usually pretty quick. But again, that's setting the tone for the rest of your race, and kind of praying that you have a really, really strong opening stint, that you have clean air, and you're able to kind of set sail on the rest of the field. For Jake Cummings, Ryan Whitlock, Fiore, it's absolutely working right now.
It's working out well for Cale Davidson too. Like you said, clean air, something that maybe doesn't get enough, get enough attention, but clean air makes it so much easier to take these corners. You don't have to worry about guy in front of you. You don't have to worry about arrow wash in the middle of a fast corner. Cale Davidson has been able to put his laps down, run his line, and he's able to save as much tire as he wants or push as hard as he wants. He has a completely clear windshield, and that's, I think, played into Cale's decision to start this race on the alternate tires. He can save a little bit, maybe not have as much fall off as the guys behind him, and then at the end of the run, save a little bit of rubber to push. So Cale Davidson, I think right now is in the catbird seat, if you will, and he should be able to maintain this lead until the first set of pit stops.
We got to talk about our Muhammad Ali, though, because yes, he's been running strong, but you can almost guarantee he has been asking for every ounce of grip that those tires have on offer. There's not going to be a lot in the reserves, be it in push to pass or in grip when it comes to reaching, the top 5 of the field here. He's setting sail and trying to close that gap to Clint Halterman with about 4 seconds between them. Again, only a 5th in the race. Do not be surprised if you end up seeing our Muhammad Alif on the podium here. Here's Clint Halterman, though, trying to dig right now on the 26 of Wyatt Burton. Still some relatively clean air between them. About a second in change separating them, as everybody in the top 5, top 6 have kind of diluted for the most part.
Well, I do want to look up and pay attention to Whitlock and Cummings. We mentioned earlier that gap was about a second. And look at this. Here's actually a move. Cummings to the inside on Whitlock. This is heading into the bus stop. Cummings is going to have the inside. Looks like Whitlock's going to give it to him. So the Converse University driver snakes his way in the third. And on top of doing that, he's gone from 6 seconds back to Davidson to 5. So as he makes the pass, he's able to cut down some time out of the carousel. That spot is very clearly belonging to Cummings as Burton gets around the outside of Halterman there. Those two were side by side for a second. Now Burton coming on the primary tires. He's going to try to run down Ryan Whitlock as well.
Again, that kind of felt like a little bit of a surrender from Halterman. I think he knew middle line wasn't necessarily where he wanted to be on track, didn't want to run up and cause any drama with any of his teammates. So kind of backed out of it, thought smarter of it, and gave that position back to Burton. Now, another big stop. It looks like it might be some team orders at play as we've got trouble for the 123 of Drew Williams.
Gets into the gearbox of Esteban Munoz. That car goes around and his teammate Thomas Crump piles into him. That was Dylan Beatty, Aiken Lamar snaking through, and Williams decided he needed to tow that car, pulled it off to the side.
Oh boy.
After a top 10 run, last week's winner Drew Williams finds himself in the pits with heavy damage on lap 13 of a long race here at the Glen.
Magic carpet ride at Iowa last weekend for the Clemson kid. Battle for the bottom spot on the podium. Back on right now. Wyatt Burton to the inside of Whitlock.
Same spot that Cummings made the move last time. Whitlock gives it to him. I think that 81 car knows he's on a little bit of an older tire. He's going to let Burton have it, put Burton in P4. Now Whitlock back to P5, Halterman in 6th, and coming behind them, R. Muhammad and Leaf in 7th. Just a few laps ago, that car was 13 seconds off of Cale Davidson, and now the 12 machine has brought it down to 10 and a half. So we'll see if he can get to Cale Davidson now that he's passed most of the field, and he has an opportunity to get some clean air and just put down some fast laps.
Ryan trying the over-under there in the 26 to try and get as big of a run as possible. But I think the aero wash is just so real, and we're starting to see that tire wear off really get into play here. Again, you can see in the bottom left-hand of your screen, fuel length goes for about 13 to 18 laps. So we should see some of our guys on the red walls here start to duck in the next couple of laps. We'll see.
And one spot that I'm seeing a lot of guys slide is the exit of turn 7. That's kind of that toe of the boot. You know, that part that's about to kick you, it kicks you in the pants when you go in there on all tires. That's where we see a lot of guys slide the rears, have to catch the car a little bit. There's a little bit of runoff there, so you can get away with it. But we're going to see as they come through the bus stop and into the outer loop around that carousel, a couple of turns after that, we'll see that turn 7 area. And we'll just see if these cars step out as much as they have been. As now we're looking at Adam Willoughby in the 22, and that's a prime example of that. And Lucas Moody goes for a ride, and Riley Perkins has a bit of a scare. Looking at the 13 and Moody here. And Moody was a guy who I think had played some strategy earlier. He decided to pit on about lap number 8, and a sinking feeling watching that car go over, and oh my goodness. Woo.
Call him Scott Dixon the way he's flying right now. Lucas Moody. I mean, undercut works because the guy, you know, in front of you can't react to it and pit at the same time as you. But if you're going back out on track, full of lap traffic, that throws your strategy away. Hey, how about Jake Cummins? Got by Ryan Whitlock, got by Burton, has a really, really good run here, could bring it to Fiore.
I'm paying attention to that timing tower. That gap from Davidson to Fiore was 2.5. Now it's 1. The gap all the way back to Cummings was 5, and now it's about 1.5. If Cummings can get around the 55 here, it may be just a couple more laps before he's able to go up there and get Cale Davidson. Here he goes to the outside, this time into the bus stop. Fiore's going to let him have it. Behind them, Halterman gets 5th from Whitlock, and now Jake Cummings sets his sights on Cale Davidson.
Not a surprising place to see overtakes. I was amazed how much we were seeing over-unders here in the first 5-6 laps. But if you really, really have momentum, it's going to start at turn 1, and you're going to be able to use it to get that pace in the S's and then clear someone before the bus stop. That's really where you can get it done. Oh my goodness, Jake Cummings, by the way. The fall off has been so real for these Reds, and they've dropped like a stone, and Jake Cummins looking for a way around the leader.
Huge block by Cale Davidson. Now this is turn number 9 onto the straight. Cummings might have a look to the inside of 10. He's not going to do it. He's going to stick behind the 2 car for at least another lap. Davidson rolls wide. Does he want to pit this time? Yes, he does. Cale Davidson pulls off into the pits. Jake Cummings to the lead on lap 15.
Watch Burton, by the way, further back as he's staring down Fiore, trying to get a move down. He lunges to the inside here on turn number 1, uses a healthy amount of curbing. It was messy, but he got himself back up into second.
Now we'll have to see if Burton has anything for Cummings. Meanwhile, if I'm the driver of the 55, Ben Fiore, I might be thinking that I missed an opportunity to pit as we look at Nick Stockner. Gets a little bit too wide. Guess what? That's turn 7. The car slid out from under him, put the rears in the grass, and then spun it, trying to get going again. It looks like he was able to rejoin safely as we have more cars on pit road now. Muhammad Alif into the pits, Grant Schiller into the pits. Here's Cale Davidson exiting the pits. It's all over the place.
And, well, yeah, big overlap in strategy here. And again, it's such a different race here when guys are able to, when tires are things that go before fuel. I don't know provisionally how long you could really run on those primaries until the wheels fall off. But again, I think it's good for a lot of these guys to maybe get these primaries off of their car early. Get that gap as soon as possible and then build on solid, mid-stint runnings here. Could even see some guys maybe end it on the red walls when they started. We shall see. Here's Ben Fiore, Burton, all of your top 3, top 5 now coming into pit road.
And you've got to remember that there is a required compound swap. You've got to spend at least 1 lap on each set of tires as Munoz smokes him coming into the pits. So does Dylan Beatty a little bit, but you have to run at least a few laps on each tire. So we saw how much Jake Cummings was able to gain on those primaries. He will have to run on the alternates at some point in this race, which means he'll be the one, giving up the time instead of the one chasing. I don't know if I'd rather be chasing or defending at the end of the race, but we'll see how this one shakes out. Jake
Watch
Cummings
the blend
still
here with
out
Jake
there
Cummings.
running laps.
Overcut wins.
Oh, yes.
For Jake Cummings. I think it was a little bit of lap traffic that Cale Davidson got himself involved with earlier on. But again, still on relatively cold Firestones here, so this gap could close up in the next couple of corners. But some really, really good driving and some really good strategy here from Jake Cummins. Muhammad Alif started in the back of the pack, now running 6th. Oh my
contact.
Goodness. Wyatt Burton
could have been favorites. Yeah, you said it, Jackson. Wyatt Burton, Ryan Whitlock involved. This is coming out of the pits on cold tires into turn 2.
Commentator's curse strikes again. Cold tires, just a little bit of a snap there from Wyatt Burton, trying to correct it, overcorrects, and then just snaps the car into Whitlock. Let's ride it from there.
There's just no grip when these tires have not come up to temperature. And unfortunately, that is going to junk really good runs for both of those cars. Meanwhile, back up front, like you said, that gap had an opportunity to come down, and it did come down. Cale Davidson has run down Jake Cummings, had a peek to the inside. A one decided against it, and they're going to run single file, but you can't barely fit a car between them as they head into turn 2.
What is in Cale Davidson's mind right now? Is there confidence? Is there fear? Nick Stockner for sure had fear running into the bus stop. Man, did he overcook that. Getting the 124 just a little bit too hot into the bus stop. That's fixable-ish.
I think
rear wing
with a new Indy car.
Tub's fine. So we missed it, but Cale Davidson has cleared Jake Cummins once again for the lead here. I've got a feeling this battle, though, is far from over, Cade.
Yeah, looks to me like both of these cars are on the same tire. We're going to wind you back in time. This is coming up the hill through the S's. Davidson got a great run, swung it to the outside, got side by side into the bus stop. Jake Cummings, I think right here, decides he's just going to let the two car have it for the moment. And Cale Davidson flies ahead. He's now opened up a half-second lead. As let's go ahead and take a look while we have a moment at some of the chat messages. You guys feel free to leave everything and anything that you want. If there's a team, a driver you want to shout out on, let us know in this chat feature on the YouTube video. We got Brandon Schulerberger. Clint Frauderman will win this race. I'm with you. I think Clint's a great pick. Right now sitting very solidly in P4, and a couple of his closest competitors just crashed out. So Halterman could be in a good shot. Even through tornado warnings, Ball State prevail. Yeah, we know a large part of the country right now is under a little bit of a tornado watch, so hope you're all staying safe. And if the power goes out, we do apologize in advance, but hopefully that will not happen. And keep digging Mr. Excitement and then darn cold tires. You see what happens when you just don't have grip. Ben Fiore, all the grip in the world on the prime tire, gets around Halterman. Halterman maybe had a little bit of a look for the switchback there, but through the carousel, it's Fiore into the third spot. Now here goes Halterman again looking inside. Unfortunately, that's going to put him on the outside of the next corner. Will he be able to stay there?
Which flips. That late apex is going to help him get all of that momentum, but again, inside line goes back to Ben Fiore, and in both of their rearview mirrors, here comes Al-Muhammad Alif. Clint Halterman on the button, trying to keep that momentum from the outside and make the long way around work. If he can stick here, he's gonna have it. He's gonna have it as they work back onto the NASCAR course. Can't be enough. Some great defense here from Ben Fiore.
Does not want to give this spot up. It is going to be incredibly tight. There it is. There's the look to the inside from Halterman. He has to slide the tires just a bit to stay off of Fiore. Fiore does the smart thing and gives him a little bit of room, but that allows Halterman to get a pretty good exit side by side down the front stretch. He's going to dive it into turn 1. Now Fiore sets up a little bit of the crossover, but Halterman for the moment is clear. Now he's on the button to try to escape from the 55, but Fiore's got the toe underneath the S's, and they're going to bring Al-Muhammad Alif right into this battle as well. Look at how close it is between the 100 and the 55.
Look at the red tires of Clint Halterman. He's got the faster tire. He wants the fresh air to maximize that performance. And now that he's cleared the draft, look at how much that's given him just right here through the bus stop, as it's gone from on his gearbox to now 3-4 car lengths through the carousel. Ben Fiore driving like he knew that was his one major opportunity to swing back, but just give it a couple more laps and the script is absolutely gonna flip. But he can't do that right now because he's got a rear view mirror full of Al-Muhammad Alif.
It looks to me like Alif has gone ahead and put on those red tires, possibly trying to run a little bit longer. He started on the alternates. He's gone on the alternates again. So for the beginning part of this run, he should have pace compared to the guys in front of him. We'll see where he's running by the end. He's dropped his interval to the lead down from 12 to 7 seconds. Still a ways to go here, but he's got time to work with it, as he's right now hunting the 55 of Ben Fiore. Every lap that goes by is an opportunity missed for Al-Muhammad Alif, as he's going to be putting more and more heat into those Firestone tires.
Hard to defend in that back half of the track because you have combination corners, pairs of right-handers and pairs of left-handers, so you don't necessarily get that switchback opportunity. So some bold defense from Ben Fiore all night long so far, but Al-Muhammad Alif with a thumb full of push to pass right now is going to try the long way around. It's going to be a done deal before the bus stop.
Fiore lets him get clear. Muhammad clips the grass just a little bit, but able to get the power down and put a few car lengths between them as they head into the boot section. Fiore's still going to be able to stay there, and Fiore's still going to have pace. He's been really good all race long. If he can just stay right behind that 12 car, may come back to him by the end of the run. But for the moment, it's a Leaf up to 4th. Now, he set his sights on Clint Halterman about 1 second ahead to the 100 car. This could be a key moment of defense for Halterman. Also on the alternates, these two on the same tire strategy. If Halterman can stay ahead, he'll give himself an advantage heading into the second pit stop.
If I'm Ben Fiore, I'm treating a Leaf the exact same way I'm treating Clint. Just stay in contention. Don't throw haymakers at him or don't try dive bombs, but just stay relatively within pace. And then the minute that drop off is going to come again, it is going to be all your advantage. It's going to be real interesting to see what Clint Halterman can do right now with open air, and if Muhammad Alif can close that gap to Clint. But if there's anything he can do to close that gap to our leaders, Cale Davidson and Jay Cummings, by the way, both of those guys still relatively in a duel right now, just 0.8 between one another.
Right now, taking a look at Andrew Voigt from Penn State. He's had a pretty good run so far. Pretty quiet day, but that number 9 car, he started this race back in the 18th position, so +8 for Voigt. Just behind him, Jason Wallet in 11th. Started this one, there he is, all the way back in 21st, so +10 for the Drexel driver. That just goes to show you what staying out of trouble can do. It can get you up into the top 10. We've seen problems for Drew Williams, Wyatt Burton, Brian Whitlock, among others. And it's allowed these three to gain some position and then play some strategy to hold on to it. They're going to be fighting for a top 10 all the way until the end of this one. We know it's really close for the lead. We've got Muhammad Alif to pay attention to. We've got tire strategies to pay attention to. But if nothing else, this battle is going to continue. I can about guarantee for the next 30 laps, all of these guys will be fighting for a spot in the top 10.
And you can absolutely expect Jason Wallet, Andrew Voigt, Aiken Lamar, all of these guys to be things out in about 20 laps. But I think how they've carved their way forward as well is not interacting like that mid-pack battle we saw earlier on, not being entirely things out and just learning to coexist on the racetrack together. Let guys in front and behind make mistakes trying to join the freight train and just, not selling dummies if it doesn't make sense. Not really trying to work your way by if you don't feel confident with pace and running up front. I think all of these guys have just kind of built their own island right here at the border of the top 10. And they've coexisted, and it's worked brilliantly for all three of them so far.
This is just a little bit ahead of that battle. The 20 car of Dylan Beatty put some distance on Riley Berkins. Berkins, another guy who's having a pretty good day. That 33 car for New England College, finding himself in the top 10 more and more and more. I believe this is first season for that driver. Yeah, rookie from New England College. So Riley Berkins, first season, finding the footing and now being able to translate that into a few top 10 runs. Still a long way to go. I mean, we've seen attrition throughout the first part of this race. We've seen it throughout entire races in the past. I mean, we think back to Long Beach, we think back to Road Atlanta. There were cars crashing into each other all the way until the white flag lap. So still a long way to go for Berkins, but that could mean the potential opportunity to capitalize and gain even more positions.
Muhammad Alif closing that gap. That's lap traffic on the inside giving way, but he has worked his way from the back of the pack all the way to the bottom step of the podium. He's got to clear the old guy, though. Clint Halterman in that 100 has driven brilliantly so far, has fended off Ben Fiore, has battled with Jake Cummins, and although now we're starting to see these guys in the alternates have a little bit of fall off, still plenty of grip on tap. So what can the alumni do to fend off from Ball State's Muhammad Alif?
I think if they start battling each other, that might hurt them in the long run of things. You know, if you get side by side, it gets harder to make lap time. You burn up more tire. If I'm Muhammad Alif and I'm faster than the 100 car here, it might be to my advantage to just stick behind him and ride this one out, at least for a little bit. You know, we're not expecting pit stops until somewhere between lap 30 and 35. Maybe we'll see a couple guys push it close to 40. So you've got a little ways. This is that middle part of the race where you don't want to get yourself in trouble. If I'm Alif, I might want to just sit behind the 100 or completely prove the commentator wrong and swing to the inside of the S's, get myself the preferred groove in the bus stop, and make me look like a fool. Muhammad Alif dives it in, and now he's in that bottom rung of the podium in the third spot. And there's a reason why he's driving these cars, and I do not
expect anything different. Muhammad Alif feeling more confident in any part of any racetrack than any other driver. I think that's another thing that makes this kid so special, is just that ability to make the car stick where the sun doesn't shine, and finding grip, finding control, and doing it in a calm way, doing it still when you're just now halfway into the race, and keeping everything gathered up. I don't want to give him the Scott Dixon Iceman tag just yet, but he certainly drives with a level of calmness, with a demeanor, and a level of control, just like the number 9.
He's going to put distance on Halterman now, still about 6 seconds back from Cummings. Now that he's got clean air, we'll see if Alif can cut that gap a little bit. Cummings, meanwhile, 2 seconds up to Davidson means that that gap has done nothing but grow since the pit stop. Cale Davidson kind of able to drive away with this one. And this takes me back to something that I said at the top of the show. Cale Davidson, if he finds himself in a position where he's not being the chaser, instead he's the one getting chased. He's pretty much been leading since the drop of the flag. That puts him in a little bit of a different situation than he has been in all season, be it a road course or an oval. Cale Davidson now has to play a little bit of defense and predict what these guys are going to do so he doesn't get undercut, so he doesn't find himself on the wrong tire. Davidson is in a really good spot. He's leading this race, but he's also in a position where he's got to be very careful not to get taken advantage of. He can't just follow the guy in front of him, because there is no guy in front of him. He is that guy.
Lap traffic for Cale Davidson. Hey, Muhammad Alif has been exciting this race, no doubt about it, but I feel like we've seen some really, really slick moves from Jake Cummins in the 95. Not only has he gotten it done on track, he's played the right strategies, did the undercut to get the move done. Certainly not where he wants to be right now, as I believe he's trying to clear lap traffic. Yes, he is. Makes the outside work, but this is going to be a fun battle when and if Muhammad Alif closes the gap. But what I've been trying to say here as we get to our second and final pit window, this middle stint is just about staying in contention. Whether you're Muhammad Alif, Clinton Falchman, Ben Fiore, it's just about keeping a somewhat good delta, and when you're making that switch to the fresher tires, giving yourself a good position to when you turn that wick back up to max, you're able to get to the gearbox and get to the front.
Glen Halterman up to the 4th spot. I think that means he's gotten around Ben Fiore.
I think he was already there, but what interests me here, Cade, he has stayed very much in lockstep here. Actually, I think Ben Fiore has closed that gap a little bit himself. This is pretty much a 3-car freight train. I think there's been a little bit of reservation maybe from Muhammad Alif. He knows he's got still a pretty good way to go if he wants to make fuel work. And he might already be starting to run out of steam in those red-walled alternatives. But we shall see. But this is where the script begins to flip for Ben Fiore. Eyes are not deceiving me. He's on the black-sided firewall. He's on the black side primaries from Firestone. So now that grip is going to start to cross back over, and we're going to see potentially a move back from Ben Fiore if he's able to close the gap. Lap traffic is not going to help much either.
The lap traffic just going to slow these guys down. I think it's done a good job of getting out of the way. Can't tell exactly who that is there, but we've had no issues with lap traffic thus far. That was something that was a little bit talked about after the Road Atlanta race was, hey, is there something we can do? Try to get these guys out of the way. We don't need, cars that really aren't contending for position, messing with the leaders, and they've really stepped it up this race. You're only going to lose so much time just getting out of the way a little bit. You don't have to sacrifice your entire race.
Right.
Just move over, go for it a bit. So really good on them, as we start lapping through cars and as the laps start winding down. Hopefully we continue to see that. It's a sign of respectful racing. Riley Birkins has thrown it down pit road, maybe looking at a potential 3-stop strategy. For everybody else, I would predict that they're only going to make one more stop. This could be a little bit of a play for Birkins to try to gain a little bit of track position in the long run. Birkins right now swapping to primaries and going to drop from 8th to 15th. So only giving up so much time in that 33 car. As this is our Muhammad Alif.
Ooh, here we go.
On the same strategy. Here we go.
So early hit cycle here. We saw earlier on with Cale Davidson, Cade, the risk of the undercut. So we know our Muhammad Alif is fast. We know he's able to cut through this field like butter and has confidence in getting by guys. But where is he going to spit out? How many cars is he going to have to clear? And how much will that choke him up? Because he might be able to cut through guys easily. He's still losing time. You're taking air out of that front wing. You're giving yourself more work. You got to get the long way around most of the time in order to clear guys. So he'll rejoin the track in 7th, just short of Aiken Lamar. Here comes Thomas Crump in the 16. Again, another really solid guy from last weekend, trying to put an exclamation point on the road course season. Cale Davidson up to 4 seconds over Jake Cummings. He has started to take off. That was down to a second. I'm curious what the big change, what the big shift there was. I'm not sure if Cale decided to make a change with his car, if Jake realized maybe something with his strategy and had to back off. He's got relatively, he's kind of in an island right now. So we shall see. Clint Halterman also in clean air. Nobody taking it to pit row on lap 30. This is an interesting call from our Muhammad Alif, Cade.
Yeah, and what I'd noticed from this 12 car was that he has been running pretty much this entire race on the reds. He's managed to find a way to get the grip of those tires that are supposed to wear out, to find a way to get that grip to last a little bit longer. Here's Riley Birkins. We talk about the dangers of the
we
undercut.
did it again.
Oh,
Lucas man.
Moody, and now Birkins, subject to the undercut curse, looks like no damage to the New England College machine, but Birkins going to fall outside of the top group, and he will go a lap down. Aiken Lamar was on pit road as well. This could just be a strategy call. Looks like it is, but as I was saying with Alif and I believe a few of these other guys like Thomas Crump, they've run a lot of this race on the alternate tire. They found a way to save that grip and stay fast and not subject themselves to as much fall off from tire management, maybe just the way that they're driving, being more comfortable sliding around, whatever it may be. That's given Alif an advantage to cut through this field. And so he's figured out, hey, I want to be on alternates as much as I can, but I also want to minimize my fall off. I'm going to split this race up into quarters. I'm not going to run out the fuel. I'm going to, 3-stop it. Hopefully I can be aggressive and be on the offense the entire race. He's gone back to 7th. He's 38 seconds off the lead. Everybody still has to make one more pit stop. But our Muhammad Alif is going to have better tires for the duration of this race. Over the course of 28 laps, by my math, he's got to make up a little bit over a second a lap. It could be possible. We'll see. Here's Keegan Calick. That may be Nick Henley. And those two go launching off.
More trouble for Keegan. Oh, my goodness. As second car to fly today.
That one was a little bit less dramatic than what we saw with the 13, but nonetheless,
absolutely.
You do not want to be jumping in an Indy car. Here's Dylan Beatty, teammate to Moody, now pitting, and he's going to drive by Henley as well. Another Ball State car, that 64, that got caught up in that crash and destroyed. And that's going to be really interesting for Keegan Kallick. Kallick already has himself an incident, I believe a strike, for what happened earlier with Christian Hill. So we'll see if he gets a second one for that. Here's Ben Fiore diving it to the inside. He's got Clint Halterman, and this is what you talked about, that script flipping. Ben Fiore on the prime tire, finding grip late in the run. He's got himself up into the third spot.
Again, I just told you, patience is a virtue when it comes to that. And when you're running the longer stint, as we watch Fiore run it very, very low, now come into the pits. Interesting call here from Ben Fiore. I'm not sure how much gas, I don't know how much gas there Clint has left in the tank, but you know, when I was doing esports, I was coached, you know, when you're running the long game, you've got to treat it like you're being patient. You're going to see the guy build that gap, and that's going to make you want to overdrive the car and do dumb things, but you've just got to have faith that the pace is going to come back. The battle is going to come back your way. So deal with the sucky stuff right now. The battle is going to come back to you. Leaders in the pits. Where does Muhammad Alif merge back out? This might be the front of the field, across the stripe, out of turn one. I believe Davidson's still in front. Jake Cummins now given the lead. Halterman promoted to second. And it might be a Montreal battle rematch here as Muhammad Alif trying to close that gap to Cale Davidson.
Yeah, great mention. Mid-Ohio also had a run-in at Montreal. Mid-Ohio was another incident. Jake Cummings and Clint Halterman have been around each other all season. Right now, not in the immediate vicinity, but still battling for the lead, yet to make a stop. And looking at these numbers, I'm not sure that just about everyone is going to find a way to split this race into quarters. As I'm thinking about it, I don't know if it's possible on fuel to two-stop this race. Halterman could be trying to do that, but it would be a very aggressive play. If you can get 19 laps on a tank of gas, Halterman's going to pit it in now. I just don't think you can split this race into thirds and do it comfortably. So now everyone deciding when they want their middle two stops to be. Cummings decides now. He and Halterman in at the same time. We'll see who can win the race off of pit road. And remember what happened to Wyatt Burton. This is a very treacherous situation.
Going to take some lifting and coasting to get it done. And yeah, I think Muhammad Alif is going to treat it like, you know, like a basketball game, split it into fourths. As it looks like, yes, Muhammad Alif clears Jake Cummings here. So this is going to be real interesting here, Cade, because I do think Jake Cummings is going to try to run this out to the checkered. And again, if you're doing a heavy pit stop, if you're running an extra stop off of what's considered normal, you've got to have the pace to back it up. And I mean, if you're Muhammad Alif, that's not even questionable.
But at the same time, the undercut paid off for Alif. While Jake Cummings worries about warming up his tires, the 12 car is able to set sail. He's got it down to a 4-second lead up to Cale Davidson. Behind them, Ben Fiore, Clint Halterman side by side. That battle is for the 4th spot. There they are. Give it to Fiore for the moment. As they come out of turn 7, it's Fiore, Halterman, well behind Jake Cummings. But this battle has not split up in any of the past few laps.
Here's what I love about the Collegiate iRacing League. There's no such thing as a single battle or a slice of a battle or a quick battle. If you see two guys on track going at it at some point, if you press any number on the keypad, you can do that, by the way. You can press the top row here when we're done streaming, and it will break the video into tenths. I'll give you a really solid chance if you go to another half of our video, those guys are still going at it. But the positions are different. You're going back and forth. If you have a guy beat on race pace, you'll strategy out to the front. And guys are finding so many different ways to get themselves to the front, to get a competitive edge. I am not overreacting when I say, as we've got trouble for Jason Wallet, already had a broken rear wing there for the Drexel University guy. And that is how it happened.
Sorry, he got really deep into the bus stop, and this is what we saw happen to Nick Stockner earlier, where he popped those tires. and then going through the boot section with no downforce, spins it
Right.
again. Unfortunate end to, we talked about Jason Waller competing for a top 10, and look at all the damage to that car. It is essentially day over for the Drexel machine.
Got to be cool in the pocket, like what I said, like being confident that the grip's going to come back, the battles are going to come back. But just finishing this point, I am not overreacting when I say, as a guy that's called a lot of sports cars in iRacing, and Indy cars on iRacing, I am not over-exaggerating when I say CIL FC is some of the best IndyCar racing I've seen on this game, on this platform, period. Always a good show. And it's usually between these two guys up front right now. Kel Davidson, R. Muhammad Alif. Jake Cummins has given us a heck of a show, but he's 8 seconds off from the lead right now. He's more concerned right now about Ben Fiore, Clint Halterman, Munoz, by the way. Not quite. I don't know how I want to describe Steven's race so far. He's had really good pace, and he's gone wheel to wheel with a lot of guys. It's been a good kind of quiet race. Being there where it matters and not doing dumb stuff. Good stuff from Esteban.
And Munoz, kind of just a part-time guy. You know, he wants to show up and have a good run, not really competing for points. Runs part-time on the Cup side as well. And right here, just able to keep it smooth. He's been racing in the Formula College Series for quite some time here. One of the more experienced drivers, we'll say, in the field. Not necessarily older, but definitely competing in that alumni class. And yeah, Munoz has that cool to capitalize on other drivers' mistakes. When he's able to stay out of trouble, he finds himself up in the top 10 and he stays there. He's still got a ways to go to finish it out. Still looks like another pit stop for just about the entire field. So we'll see how that shakes out. But for the moment, Esteban Munoz has put himself in a very solid position. And we've seen it happen in Montreal, Mid-Ohio, Road Atlanta, all kinds of places. Something can happen for a battle in the top 5, and Munoz would be the one to capitalize.
Want to give a special thanks to Keith Brubaker here in chat, who has become a voluntary trackside reporter here, saying the Ball State drivers might randomly disconnect. I'm talking to Lucas right now. Said they have nasty storms over campus and just got a tornado warning. What a story it would be. What bittersweet feelings would be for R. Muhammad Alif. Gets himself one position from first place and could potentially have that thrown away.
We've got to remember, Cale Davidson is from Ball State as well. So is Dylan Beatty in the 7th spot. That's 3 cars in the top 10 for Ball State. If all of those suddenly drop out, there's Dylan Beatty, probably one of the better runs of his season, able to stay out of trouble. It feels like for once in his season, Beatty able to keep that car clean in the early going. Not necessarily much of his own doing, but we might want to start calling him Bad Luck Beatty the way some of these races have gone. And it would turn even worse luck for Dylan Beatty if the power suddenly goes out, their computer's shut down. We've already seen a disconnection issue with, I believe, Jaime Plasencia in his debut was unfortunately forced to drop out of this race due to a technical issue. So if that happens to Ball State, what does the race become? Jake Cummings and Ben Fiore are still only 0.4 of a second apart. Clint Halterman very well could catch that battle as well. So hopefully those Ball State cars do not drop out of this race. But if they do, we'll have to keep an eye on the race within the race. This battle for third, still a lot of points on the line. It's Jake Cummings leading Ben Fiore, a little bit of lap traffic for Tubakovic in front of them. But this battle incredibly close with just over 20 laps to go.
Ben Fiore started this race so strong. He's turning the wick back up again. A little bit of a look to the outside here. Jake Cummins not cracking at all. And here comes Clint Halterman. Do you guys get tornadoes in Huntsville?
You know, there is definitely a big tornado season in Alabama, and we are in the midst of it right now. So I am also praying that I don't get knocked out. I think we're under watch right now. So if that goes to a warning, I will be, I'll just be risking it up here on the upper story next to a window. The CIL's worth it. Man, I got to call this praise. I don't need to go retreat. But no, hopefully we don't get anything. We are in tornado season in Alabama. We're blessed to be safe thus far this year. But right now, Indiana, Alabama. I think Florida's under watch right now. So a lot going on. Stay safe and watch some great racing. Jay Cummings able to hang on to the third spot for the moment. Fiore had a lot of looks, but Jake Cummings put on a pretty good masterclass of defending, and for the moment, he's able to keep it. Now Halterman's on the button. Fiore moves to the inside to prevent Halterman from making the move. They're going to go side by side into the corner, but Halterman takes it from the top.
Just a little bit later there on the binders. I would not be surprised to see a swing back from Ben Fiore. I don't even think he's going to need the button here. Tucked right into the gearbox through the S's. It might be side by side. It's going to take a little bit of courage here from Ben Fiore, and I think he's playing it safe. He decides to back out, which is probably the smart thing to do. Last thing you want to do is go too wide into the bus stop. But again, everybody here in chat, possible tornado touchdown near Ball State campus. Jake said the ones not racing are in the basement. Power has been going on and off. Oh my goodness. Yeah, guys, absolutely stay safe. Tornadoes are temporary. CIL glory is forever, I guess. Cummings over. Halterman over Fiore. Great jump there from Halterman. Here comes Halterman with a little bit of a look to the inside. Not buying, though, is Jake Cummings. By the way, if we got tornadoes in San Diego, we've got, like, insane problems, like, before we get to that point. So, I'll get over here.
And it looks to me, Cale Davidson, Muhammad Alif have gone to zeros on the leaderboard. So
oh, no!
80, hang on a second. We might have lost him.
Oh, my goodness. Here's your battle for the lead. Jake Cummings is now holding off Glen Halterman and Ben Fiore. This is your battle for the podium, ladies and gentlemen.
1, 2, 3. Cummings, Halterman, Fiore. Cummings cuts to the inside. Now Halterman gets it on top. It's going to be a 3-car battle. Will they go 3 wide into the bus stop? No. Fiore plays it safe, pushes Halterman to the lead. That gives Clint Halterman first. Ben Fiore second, Jake Cummings third, but not out of it yet, down into the boot. That promotes Esteban Munoz to the top 5. Aiken Lamar to the top 5 as well. A complete shakeup in this race gives the lead to Clint Halterman. Jackson, we both wanted to pick him from the beginning. I guess we had a feeling that this one was going to work out for last week's winner, Clint Halterman, but for the moment, his lead is anything but secure. With 1 pit stop still remaining, he has his 2 closest competitors right in his mirror.
Old guys rule. We learned it last weekend with Clint Halterman. A lot of the alumni flexing that muscle in the corn. You mentioned Drew Williams, a lot of the Clemson guys being really, really strong in that vet side of that program. Some really, really strong running from them. Clint Halterman, the spearhead of the alumni, followed by 2 students. Ben Fiore, who, again, we have not seen front running in the past couple of weeks, has been so good, but has been so smart. And you look back to the 95 of Jake Cummings, it's just been ruthless aggression from him, now starting to drop back just a little bit. But you look at not Carlos Munoz. You look back at Munoz, you look at Aiken Lamar. These 3 are on an island. This is your podium battle, absolutely. And as these 2 start to break away a little bit, it might be Fiore v. Halterman.
I want to take a look at what tires these guys are on too, because we are getting to that point in the run where the reds really start to fall off. And if any of these guys are on that alternate tire, there it is. You see they're all on the same tire. Munoz is the first one on reds. So if anybody's going to be losing time, it would be him. The rest of these guys are, in fact, on the same strategy. But it looks to me like, yeah, like you said, Halterman and Fiore just put the power down and gapped Cummings a little bit. Cummings pitted more recently, but only by 1 lap, so that really shouldn't play a factor into it. These guys pretty much even. And with 18 laps to go, Jackson, the window is open to make it on fuel.
So it's going to take maybe a little bit of fuel map management, a little bit of lifting and coasting to get it done. I think that's maybe why we're seeing Jake Cummings drop back a little bit, again, on the same tire. But I think maybe a little bit of miscalculation, maybe a little too fast in the box there when it came to fuel. So he's backing up just so slightly, still absolutely in conversation, as all three of them are now nearly 20 seconds over Munoz and Lamar. It's so interesting to see just how this field stacks up and in level of competition, because the field is so spread out, and yet we've got first, second, and basically third in lockstep, but we've got guys, you know, on pace, a lap, 2 laps down. It's such good racing no matter where you look. Seeing in chat here, Jake just texted me, power out in the building is pitch black. Our thoughts and prayers here from the CIL team that everybody at Ball State is okay. As more trouble for Jason Wallet. Oh, buddy. Suspension first. Into that retaining wall on the inside of turn 11. That's going to be day done for sure. Clint Holterman still at the front of this field. Ben Fiore looking a little bit more racy, but not quite there. And yeah, okay, these guys are going to make it on fuel, but we are going to start to venture into the unknown when it comes to how these tires are going to act, because we really haven't seen guys run this deep on the alternate, or on the primaries, excuse me. So it's going to be interesting to see not just how much it falls off, but if there's some guys that maybe are a little bit more confident with the looseness that comes with that.
And I do believe that everybody will have to pit one more time. I think it would be too big of a stretch to try to get this run all the way to the checker. We've seen 18 laps be your about maximum. Maybe you could get it to 19. And so I just don't think that it's possible to go all the way to the end here. Maybe we see somebody throw a Hail Mary and hope for a full course yellow and try it. But in the event that we don't see that, it's going to be one more pit stop. The question more becomes, like you said, how comfortable are you sliding around? And would you rather be doing that at the end of the race or right now? If you're pit right now, you're going to be on fairly old tires by the end of this thing. And I think you want grip to defend, as we're looking at a pretty good battle here. This is Grant Schiller and Andrew Voigt. Schiller going to try to get it on the outside of the S's, and he's going to do it. He's on that alternate tire. Voigt tucks in behind him. Doesn't have a run into the bus stop, so put Grant Schiller from St. Clair College up to 7th. I believe this would be pretty much his best run of the season. But back to what I was saying, if you pit now, you're going to be on old tires toward the end of the race. But if you stay out a little bit, it could take a little bit of fuel map management. So we'll just have to see, as Ben Fiore still has Halterman in his sights. Cummings 4 seconds back.
Hey, I think Jake Cummings is going to try and take this to the end. He's on the same compounds. He's shown pace all night, but he's starting to drop back. These guys are still absolutely driving like they are going to at least have a splash and dash here. I think Jake is going to try to stretch it out. We're going to have to see. Going to take this time really quickly, though, to thank our sponsor as this battle continues to heat up, as the Eagle Esports Classic is brought to you by Texas A&M Texarkana. Proud to announce that they are a proud sponsor of CIL, not just building a competitive esports program, creating real opportunities for student athletes through university athletics. All TAM, UT, TAMU esports athletes receive in-state tuition, whether they're from out of state or even international. All transfer students who meet eligibility requirements, including a minimum 3.5 GPA, can qualify for a $6,000 transfer credential scholarship, making higher education more affordable while competing at the highest levels. Visit Texas A&M Texarkana.com for more.
And we are incredibly happy to have Texas A&M on board for quite a few races. I believe this is their last one of the season. We'll have to see, not exactly sure, but they've done a great partnership with us. They've got a few drivers that have competed as well, as Schiller looked to the inside of.
There we go.
That was really close there. But this is the kind of racing action that TAMUT has helped us bring, and we want to continue to do so, as there was a little bit of contact back in the pack. That was Garrett Greathouse from Kansas State. I was going to give him a shout out. He's running an incredibly clean race. There he is. I believe he made his debut at Road Atlanta. and has been having, like I said, a clean race thus far. But there was contact, I believe it was Munoz, as he was getting lapped by that 009 just in front of him. But for the most part, it's been a pretty solid race for Garrett Greathouse. Right now, one lap down in 12th. And after the carnage and the weather that we have seen in this one, that is a good run for the 66 car.
I think I've ever seen real life weather have a play in a esport races results like this. But I mean, you've gotta feel for Cale Davidson, for R. Muhammad Alif, one guy running up front all race long was looking so strong. The other, like the hardest of chargers, was making the entire field look like butter the way he was cutting through it, and for that to be thrown away on power. So handful of drivers from Ball State absolutely still deserving of flowers, although they will not have that result on the board today. Battle for the win still absolutely in play right now. Ben Fiore versus Clint Halterman. I still don't know if these guys are going to make it on fuel. You would think still got maybe about 3 more laps before I'd make that decision, but we're getting to a point here where you got to make a choice. Carson Waller's getting around, just getting on the throttle a little bit too early, shoves the nose into the inside wall. That's coming out of the toe there, Cade.
Yeah, that's one of those spots that we talked about, just super duper difficult to get that car on power, and it wants to spin as soon as you get all the horsepower into the rear axle. But as you were talking about, yeah, it's really, really easy to feel for those Ball State guys having the power bar like that, especially when you have not one but 2 drivers controlling the race. And on top of that, Dylan Beatty was running back in about the 6th or 7th position. But another thing that you have to think about is championship implications. You came into this race where the points were being controlled by those same 2 drivers, Alif and Davidson. But now, with Clint Halterman leading this race, I talked about it at the top, he has an opportunity to gain maybe 40 or more points.
Major points.
Those, it's a huge gap. It's basically an entire race, right? Alif and Davidson are going to be scored about where they're running right now. I think Jason Wallet is still running, so he has the opportunity to pass them. Ryan Whitlock, after getting involved in that crash, is still trying to salvage a couple of points. So that's going to drop them right out to the tail end of the top 20, which is 30, 35 points, a big chunk of the lead that Davidson and Alif had on Halterman coming into this one. And so, unfortunately, things like this happen. We had the same thing happen in the Cup Series last season in Atlanta. There was a server on the East Coast that went out and took out drivers from Clemson, UNC Charlotte, and, allowed for a little bit of an underdog finish. Now we have the same situation where it's really unfortunate. We hope that all those guys are staying safe. But there's not a way around it. They're going to lose those points, and it's just going to tighten up what's been a pretty close season-long battle.
And we've seen such dominance from R. Muhammad Alif this year. This is throwing a major wrench in the gears there, to that championship lead, to a dominant season. So the question is now, what can Clint Halterman do? Can Ben Fiore be the ultimate spoiler in that? By the way, looks like we did have one of our takers in the top 10 come in for fuel. That was the 016 of Jason Crump, I believe. But nobody else here, as we've got 11 laps to go. So now you're asking a lot of questions. As I say that, Munoz now comes in from 4th. So now we're getting to some interesting choices that got to be made. Do you come in for fuel? If you have to come in for fuel, do you take new tires while you're there? A lot of different choices potentially there. And for guys like Munoz, especially for Fiore and for Halterman, these are going to be the decisions that determine, that determine your race.
And I think it could be a little bit of a situation of trying not to take as much fuel, right? You stretch these tires a little bit longer, you come down pit road, you've only got to put half a tank of gas in, right? If it is a splash and dash, maybe you don't change 4 tires. maybe you only spend 3 seconds on pit road, 2 seconds on pit road. That can save you valuable time. Something happened in there to the 81 of Whitlock.
Looks like a guy that should have probably splashed and dashed, I think. Might have been out of fuel and crawling into the pit lane. Oh, Ben Fiore in the pits, and now Clint Halterman in no man's land. What is the response going to be here? Jake Cummins instantly clears him. Ben Fiore, what you got?
And Fiore is going to be successful on the undercut. Now this could be the situation where Halterman might be able to run a little longer and save a little bit of time not putting fuel in the car. Let's see how long the pit stop takes for Ben Fiore. He's out of his box in 8 seconds. Pretty quick stop. He should be good to the end of the race with just 11 laps to go. Now be very careful here. He's on
tires.
He wants to, that's right. He wants the grip here. He wants the grip now, but he's got to be very careful. Cold reds are dangerous, especially on a track that is rubbered up, slickened up, and it is hot out there in New York. So it's going to take probably 2 complete laps for Fiore to get completely comfortable in that car. But as soon as he feels that way, you see sliding around at the exit of the bus stop. As soon as he feels that way, it's going to be pedal to the metal. He has to gain 33 seconds on Halterman, but Clint Halterman still has to drive down pit road.
Exactly. 10 laps for the race here for Ben Fiore. Clint Halterman out of the final corner. Now he'll respond. So what is the call going to be here? Is Jake Cummins going to follow in as well? What are the decisions that are going to be made here? These are very, very crucial moments here as we get into the single digits remaining. And it looks like, yes, Jake Cummins follows as well. So the undercut for Fiore, how is this going to go? Again, cold tires for Ben, but this could be very, very close. And out of the penultimate corner here.
It'll be interesting to see where they blend. Fiore at the line now. Halterman and Cummings rolling out of pit road. Halterman has a decent gap. It looks like it's going to be about 2 seconds in the S's, but now it's Halterman's turn to be on ice-cold tires. He gets the opportunity to slip and slide around. It's going to be damage control, and by the time he gets those tires up to temperature, will he still have the lead over the driver from Maris? 10 laps to go.
What can Jake Cummings do? Depending on how hard these two battle, that might open the door back up to Jake in the 95, but he's 8 whole seconds back right now. Again, you consider that Fiore is already on these warmed up tires. Numbers might not be the way they are here at the end of this lap. And as we say that, Fiore's closing that gap just a little bit. Still not quite within striking distance, though, for Clint Halterman.
He was able to bring it down from 2 seconds to a half second. A great run from Fiore. Now, if he can get the toe down the straightaway, something that'll be interesting to look at here is how much push to pass do these drivers have left. Haven't talked about it much, but you get 200 seconds of a little bit of a speed boost. And while you're using that boost, you are using a little bit more gas. Now, fuel has gone out the window. You are good to the end, and you've made your last stop. It's just mano-a-mano, driver versus driver. Halterman's on the button. Fiore's in the toe. He's close enough now, 0.3 of a second. That is enough to get the draft. He's going to follow him up the S's, get momentum down to just a few car lengths. Now it might be Fiore's turn to get on the push to pass. See if he can't get a run to the bus stop. Not going to do it this time. Sends a little bit of a dummy, but tucks back up in and gets the preferred groove through the bus stop.
Big, big pressure here from Clint Halterman. And you've got to also consider the 1 lap age difference of these tires. With how hard these guys are driving them, and with nothing else in front of them to take grip away, it is going to be all load on these Firestones. So the drop-off will not be nearly as big as, say, later in a run, but you're slowly going to see the fall-off on these tires in the next 2-3 laps. And that is going to go the way of... well, it's going to go the way of Clint Halterman.
Something else to keep in mind. Clint Halterman has won a race this season. Meanwhile, Ben Fiore has not. both very consistent drivers at the top of the charts in points and most of the statistics that we keep. But Ben Fiore has yet to beat a victory lane. Does he get a little desperate, a little aggressive here? That gap now up to 5/10 of a second. Good lap from Halterman. If he starts to disappear from the windshield of Fiore, does Ben Fiore get a little aggressive trying to catch that 100 car?
Now we see Clint Halterman on the button here. Again, it's push to pass, but with that extra horsepower boost, it can absolutely be pushed to defend, as you do as much as possible to try and minimize the effects of the drafting car behind you. I would love to see if we can get the numbers here for how many seconds these guys have left. Clint's been so conservative on the push to pass so far tonight. So we will have to see if maybe he's been saving it for the past couple of laps, using it until he's right within the gearbox to defend. You see it now 10 seconds over Ben Fiore. So again, I think it's just a little bit more patience with Clint Halterman, knowing the position he's in. Again, he only pulled it when Ben was right on his gearbox. And if he gets past, I think he's almost waiting for a pass for him to use that again. But we will absolutely see. Jay Cummings, by the way, dropping back even more now as he falls to over 10 seconds back. Lap traffic in front will go to the inside to defend. 7 laps to go here at Watkins Glen. Fiore versus Halterman.
This is a battle that we saw go all the way to the end. I believe it was Long Beach. It was for second and not the lead, but it came down to the final corner. And it looks like these two have found themselves in the exact same position again. I think right here is going to be Fiore's chance. That longest straightaway is going to be the biggest draft, and if he can get on the button at the right time, that'll be his biggest run. The bus stop could be his passing zone, but he has to set it up all the way at the beginning of the complex, really going back to lap 1, building momentum, and to do that, he's got to be close enough. He's only going to get so many chances at it, but I think if we see a pass, it'll be going into the bus stop.
We got to talk about, by the way, as these guys are still kind of in a Mexican standoff, the guys outside of the podium in the races they've driven. Munoz, Aiken, Lamar, Ramboy, Crump, so many of these guys from out of nowhere have done some very, very safe, consistent driving, and it has paid off in a major, major way. A lot of them are in islands right now. Voigt is actually on push to pass, you can see there, to defend from Crump. That's the battle for 6th right now, but a lot of these guys, I'm not going to say they've been starving for good results, but this is going to mean a lot for a good amount of these guys running in the top 5 and the top 10.
Another guy to look at there, Andrew Burrell, has not had a good season in terms of staying out of trouble, but if he can keep it straight here, he will get himself a top 10. Same can be said for Grant Schiller. Riley Berkins just went a lap down, but still inside the top 10 after an aggressive undercut earlier in the race. Adrian Tubakovic, believe that would be the best finish of the season for that 38 car. Haven't seen much of him. Another guy who's unfortunately found himself caught up in seemingly every other incident. Tubakovic on track for P11. So very solid run for the driver from St. Clair College.
Feeling like Ben is starting to lose Clint a little bit here. Still relatively close here, 7/10. But I'm not sure if we're now starting to see that fall off have an effect for Ben Fiore. Again, lap traffic a little bit of a factor in front there.
That lap traffic will give a little bit of a tow down the straightaway to the leaders. It'll become dirty air in the corners, but for the moment, that'll help Halterman conserve a little bit of that push to pass as he runs up on the bumper of Ryan Whitlock. Now with just 5 laps to go, you're right, Fiore almost a full second back now. He may be seeing his first win of the season slowly slipping away from him. It's going to be time to change something, try something, do something different. As Whitlock getting out of the way, he's going to let both of the leaders go by.
Still on
But
the
that
brakes
gap
there,
a
I
little
think
bit
we're
bigger than
both
it was a
good
couple laps
here
ago.
going into the bus stop. So good sportsmanship from your guy there.
Ryan Whitlock has found himself 7 laps down in 14th. I think I've cursed both drivers that I pointed out as having bad luck and trying to turn it around. I said Whitlock was able to escape the beginning of the race, and then he wasn't. And I also said that Dylan Beatty was able to escape bad luck, and then the power goes out. So I'm going to stop doing that. The commentator's curse has struck me in such a way that I almost feel partially responsible for what has happened here in Watkins Glen. But
You feel bad because yes, obviously you feel like you're somewhat responsible, but that also feels like as a commentator that gives you almost a little bit of validation, like I am worthy of the curse, like I'm someone that is apparently able to give this out to people. It's weirdly self-validating. I'm not saying I'm hoping people have bad races and do like bad things. This also happens, by the way, whenever I'm watching any form of sports and I gas up a certain player on any team, and then they'll proceed to immediately suck. Or the inverse of I'm talking smack on a player and then they'll absolutely pop off.
as Clint Alterman has opened it up to a 1.5 second lap. He's leading the race by 1.5 seconds. And I think this is just that experience coming in. We've been ragging on Halterman for being, one of the old guys, the unk status of the alumni driver. But honestly, it is paying huge dividends right now. This is a very technical car. This is a very responsive car to drive. And Clint Halterman has been doing it for a while. He's been racing in this series for a while. And now he's on old red tires. The grip is going to be going away. He has the very hungry, fast driver behind him, but he's been able to keep Fiore there. And it could mean 2 in a row for Halterman if he can hang on for just 3 more clean laps.
You got to look at the other side of this coin, though, Cade, in Ben Fiore. Again, has shown pace all season long, has been absent in a couple spots here, but has still been looking for his first win. I think he's still absolutely going to be satisfied with the night he's had so far. Not only was he battling with Cummins and Halterman, trouble here for Garrett Greathouse, another one at the bus stop. And you can see a little bit of stanky leg there in the front left. I think that might be suspension damage. Yeah, I think that's game over. But again, I still think a great drive from Ben Fiore. Still has a couple of chances here. And again, Clint still has to bring it home in one piece. But I think no matter what, Clint's going to be pretty happy with... Well, Clint is. I'm sorry. I mean, Ben is going to be very happy with the race he's had so far.
It's going to be a little bit of that sting, you got second, a top 5. It's just his second podium of the season if he can hang on to it. And so, yes, there's going to be plenty to be proud of, but I'm sure he'll feel at least a little bit defeated. And hopefully we'll get to talk to him about it. Always fun to talk to Ben Fiore. So we'll see. He does have a little bit of a chance. 1.7 seconds in 2 laps is a tall task, but it's not going to be impossible. I think Clint Halterman is going to keep a pretty wheel and make that task monumental for Fiore. But go back to when, they exited the pits and Fiore was right on Halterman's bumper. Driver the 100, stayed cool, put the car where he needed to put it, didn't try anything crazy, and now he's got himself in a position where he can ride with minimal pressure. So I don't think Fiore is going to get him, but I've been wrong about things before. We'll just have to see as they head into the bus stop. Lap and a half to go.
White flag next time by, and that gap has only gained between Clint and Ben Fiore. Same for Jake Cummins. Again, I think maybe based on the pace earlier on this race might be leaving Watkins asking for a little bit more or hoping for a little bit more. But again, I think he should absolutely have his head held high. He had a fantastic mix of aggression, of pace, got things out when he had to, and decided to put it back when we had to. Oh no, Andrew Voigt, who was running so strong this race, just in the top 10, relatively drama-free there, working down the chute. Keeps it back going in 9th, but I believe gave 7th and 8th up to Burrell and Grant Schiller.
Yeah, a few cars able to buy him there. They've been battling, but that is outside the top 5. This is your leader here by about 2 seconds. Clint Halterman takes the white flag. I think you're about to take the words right out of my mouth. It is 1 lap to go, and if Halterman can keep it straight, this will be his 2nd win of the season, his 2nd win in a row, and his 2nd win on 2 different disciplines. With an oval last week, now he may be able to add a road course to his trophy case. Through the bus stop for the final time, he's got half a lap before giving himself a huge jump in the point standings and probably an even bigger boost in confidence.
Of course, the Cup guy is going to feel a little bit at home here at Watkins Glen, but you talk about that boost of confidence, Kate, and to win a race is one thing, but to dominate, even in the face of, the could've, should've with the Ball State guys, to have some really, really solid adversaries in the form of Jay Cummins and Ben Fiore, the alumni has not cracked one bit and has actually gained on a lot of them. A win is going to look the exact same in any scorecard, but how you do it means so much to these drivers, and he's got 2 more corners for this to be a really big one.
Coming through the final turn here at the Glen, he's going to get the power down and bring it home, snake it down the front straightaway, and Clint Halterman wins the Esports Eagle Classic at the Glen, presented by Texas A&M Texarkana, and Halterman does it by just over 2 seconds ahead of a fantastic drive from Ben Fiore from Marist College. Jake Cummings from Converse is going to bring it home 3rd, and it looks like Esteban Munoz, Aiken Lamar here in a minute will round out your top 5. There is Munoz, there is Lamar. This is the battle for 6th that's shaken out in favor of Thomas Crump. Really good run for him. The rest of your top 10 will round it out. But back up front, it is continued domination from Orange Wheel Racing, a little bit of a combination team of UNC Charlotte, Clemson, UAH, and others. And Clint Halterman continues to be the leader of both that group of drivers and the alumni, bringing in now 3 wins in the past couple of weeks between the Cup and FC series. And like you said, the way that he did it was commanding. As soon as he got the lead, did not give it up. And that is going to give Clint Halterman win number 2 on the season and give him all kinds of momentum going into the Chicago Street Course next week.
Only had to waited 2 seasons almost for his first ever Formula College win. Only had to wait 1 week for his 2nd one. So huge congrats to Clint and to all the alumni. You want to talk about how strong they are here. All of your Reds here, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Absolute domination here from the alumni. Old guys rule.
Well, you're an alumni yourself. I think you're a little bit biased in that respect, but
maybe. I'm only 1 year out, and I'm basically, you've got some 5th years who are still technically in that path. Ricky Paz, who we're probably going to talk to in a little bit. So I still feel the part to an extent.
But no, it was great to have you up here, alumni or student. I gotta say the students, we still got 2 of the top 3 in the podium, so I would call it almost even. But no, fantastic stuff. We called it right from the button that Watkins Glen was not going to disappoint. It never has, be it a NASCAR, GT3, now an IndyCar, putting on just a fantastic performance, pretty much going all the way to the line. It looked really, really close there until about 5 laps to go. Halterman was really able to put the hammer down, take it into his own hands, and just drive away. But for the most part, I think that was about what we expected. A really exciting show, but also a race of attrition. We had cars in the top 10 that were laps down and limping home. Just shows you how hard it is to even finish one of these things in the CIL.
Yeah, I think what my big takeaway is, we could have had two really, really good stories in the form of maybe a little shakeup in the championship. It was going to go one of two ways for me. It was either, a shakeup in the championship with a great win for Cale Davidson, or God, what a story last to first would have been for our Muhammad Alif, right? But instead, we get somehow an even more monstrous shakeup in this championship and a back-to-back win for an alumni. Like, it doesn't get much better with that. In a 3-car battle, pretty much till the bitter end there, you can't ask for a better way to finish this. So absolutely excited. I'm just hoping that the racing will stay like this for the next 3-4 races, but I've got a pretty good feeling it's gonna do that.
Oh, absolutely. We've got a fantastic slate lined up. I believe next week we go to the Chicago Street Course. Then it's Michigan, a super speedway. Going to be some fantastic oval racing. And then we will end this season at Interlagos, which means just 3 races left to get everything you can. I think we saw a little bit of that on display here today. Not necessarily desperation, but willing to try some things, willing to be aggressive. And that is only going to amp up as we get closer to the end of the season.
No, 100%. And for me, I think you want to treat Chicago. I think we're going to see potentially a lot more reserved driving. I said this at Watkins and it didn't happen. I mean it for real this time for Chicago, because if you have a good shot, if you have a good car for Michigan, dude, and if you have it really dialed in, you've got an opportunity to really go gambling there with the draft racing that's going to produce. And you could absolutely set yourself up to be an upset in the championship. So I can't tell you about like haymakers in the back of the field, but I mean, I really do think we're going to see a lot more reserved driving in the front half of the field. That doesn't mean we're not going to see guys throwing haymakers, but I think as we get closer to Interlagos, you have guys knowing what's at stake. And it's a lot more apparent, Cade, when you've got, we saw this at Long Beach, when you've got concrete barriers canyoning you in, and that could potentially be, championships hopes over if that happens to our Muhammad Alif. I'm calling my shot. There's going to be a 5-car pile up into turn 1. It's going to be crazy. We're going to scream. Something cool is going to happen. I just don't know in what form.
Well, you are not going to want to miss it if you're watching. That race will be right here live on the CIL YouTube channel. Same place, same time, and same crew, same drivers, same everything, same amount of the excitement. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the interviews. We're going to go ahead and get our winner in here, Clint Halterman. Mr. Clint Halterman, welcome to the booth for the 2nd week in a row. You're able to bring it home. Tell us how this one feels.
Well, feels pretty good. Better lucky than good. That like they said. So yeah. First off, hopefully, I think Ball State there's some tornadoes up there, so hopefully everything's all right over there. It's just a power outage, but yeah, Cale and Alif really had Alif was came from the back and passed me like before even halfway, so they were the fastest cars there. But yeah, it's just 2 weeks in a row. I feel like I just got the luckiest break in the world. And then if go back to Texas too, I got a really lucky break there. So yeah, I knew this was going to be probably the track that or at least the road course that I had the best pace at. So, which I think kind of put myself in a position to capitalize when that when Ball State had to drop out there. But yeah, that was a exhausting race. Credit to Ben. I think we fought the entire race, and he raced me super good. He knew he didn't throw. He had a couple of chances, I think, into the bus stop to make a move, but he thankfully kind of held back and pulled in the reins there. So shout out to him for racing smart, racing clean. It was a really good battle. I was sweating my ass off there for a while. They're trying to keep it behind. But yeah, I'm really pumped to win a road course. It's not very often to the chance that comes around, so I'm pretty happy.
Kate, it's Jackson Lambros here in the booth with you. As the unk of the broadcasters, I want to congratulate you, one alumni to another. Hey, you had some really, really good competition there in the forms of Jake and Ben. What, in your opinion, might have been that little bit of difference in building that gap on both of them there in that final stint?
I think, I feel like, obviously I don't think I'm very good at hot lapping these cars. Obviously, I qualified 10th, not really where I want to be, and I think on the season my average qualifying spot's probably 8th or something like that, somewhere back there. But I feel like I usually have good enough race pace to get top 5. So I think, for me at least, I feel like I feel comfortable with the tires in this car to where I feel like I can be really consistent. And I think that is probably the best trait for that here. And I think too, especially on the last stint, I feel like my red tire dag was really good. I didn't fall off quite as bad as a lot of other people did on reds. And I think Jake Hat's got some damage, some irreparable damage, which kind of slowed him up, and that obviously that helped a lot. But yeah, I think it's just and then Watkins, for me personally, it's my best track by far. It's not even close. I've done a lot of laps here. It's one of my favorite tracks, and yeah, I think it's just I just feel like I have really good consistency on the race pace at least here, and I think that made all the difference.
The Cup guy feels right at home. I'm going to throw it to Cade right after this. One more really quick question. You basically just gave yourself 40 free points here from these front two guys in the championship. How does that change your battle here for the title with 3 races on the clock?
It's crazy to think that I might even be within a shot. Elite is going to be super tough to beat. We still got 2 road courses left. So I think top 3 is my goal right now, which still was something that I didn't think was really possible after the first couple of races. So I think top 3 is what I really want to get. If I think I could be second right now in points, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think anything could happen. We got Chicago Street next, which should be a crazy race. So I think I think I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. I think towards last season and kind of the beginning of this season, I kind of drove over my head a little bit in these races and made some mistakes. And I think kind of after Mid-Ohio, I've tried to dial it back some and be a little bit more controlled. And that's been really fruitful in these races with how sensitive these cars are. Any little mistake can put you out. So I'm just going to try to keep doing what I'm doing. But even if it all goes bad in the last 3 races, 2 wins in the season, I can't complain about that.
Cade?
I wouldn't complain about it either. I just wanted to let you know that we had a little bit of a fight up here in the booth before the race started over who got to pick you to win this one. I was going to go with Halterman. I decided to be nice and let Jackson go first.
I was first on the third.
I wanted Halterman. But you proved us both right. It was a fantastic drive. It was a ton of fun to watch. So before we get you out of here, anybody you want to shout out?
Yeah, well, first off, that's very flattering to be picked in a road course race in an IndyCar. But yeah, shout out to Orangeville Racing, of course, all the guys over there. Burl brought home a P7, I think best result of the season. Of course, and Burl doesn't have much luck, finds some way to not have good luck. And then, of course, him being alumni, coming P7 usually would get you second or third, and somehow he gets 5th in alumni. But yeah, shout out to all the guys there. Shout out to my family, my friends. Watching, and then shout out to y'all for putting on the race tonight.
Well, thank you. We'll go ahead and get you out of here. Go celebrate this one. Clint Halterman, your winner at Watkins Glen, and Jackson is now going to be with our 2nd place finisher, Ben Fiore.
Joined now by our P2 finisher in the 55 for Marist. It's Ben Fiore. Ben, a really, really solid drive. I know maybe not the position you wanted with how much you were looking at the gearbox there, but with how spotty we've seen you in the past couple of weeks, vibes are probably pretty good for you over there.
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing to be up on the podium, considering not just the last couple of weeks, but the whole season we've been top 5 podium pace right there at the front with some of the other guys who've been doing great things in this championship. So really nice to be up front. I mean, I was thrown off by the fact when they said I was starting on pole because Elite had the EOL. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. I don't know who put that in the script, but that's probably half the reason why I kind of had a bit of a bottle job on the initial start. But thankfully, once we got past the jitters about the first 10 laps of fighting at the front, not just fighting at the front, but potentially for the win, Kind of just worked to settle in the race. I feel like we did really well on the those middle stints, and we were right there with Glen throughout many of those pit exits and stuff. So we were right there, but home race would have loved one spot more, but to say definitely for getting ourselves more points out of these races, P2 is not a bad result.
What do you feel like was the main difference here between you and Clint Halterman? We, was in lockstep for so long, but still just a little bit too little too late there. What do you feel like was the main defining factor here?
To be honest, I think it's two things. I think the first thing was that initial run of the race, because I felt like being at the front, you want to beat the ults. You don't really want to take the chance being slow on those primary tires at the beginning of the race when everyone's pushing. So I didn't expect guys like Jake and Clint to be put on the primes and then just catching us by about 3 business days a lap at the end of the stint. So
right.
Yeah, I saw the route. There was 5 seconds and 3 seconds. I'm like, wait a minute. Who deflated their tires? We got something going on here with the iRacing, but it's just good strat on them, and credit to them for pulling off that strat. But like I said, we were good in the middle stints. I feel like once we got figure out how the tires were going to be managed, we kind of balanced it out at the end of the race, and we're right on them. But it's just the race up pit road. It's just a matter of getting out the right place at the right time. I was talking with Clint, in the interview in the cooldown room, and I think it was like his last stop. He apparently hit the pit wall right as he was coming out, and turns out he was just able to get out right in front of me. And sometimes in races when it's this close, we're bumper to bumper, flying Mach 2 through the bus stop here at Glen. It comes down to inches, and sometimes those go your way, sometimes they don't. And for Clint, it's things went his way, and to be fair, him and I were scrapping the whole race, and he did a hell of a job to hold me back, because being a home race, I was giving it just about as hard as I've given it the whole season. So just unfortunate. We were right there, just nothing to show for it, unfortunately, in terms of the win column.
Poughkeepsie, New York's Marist University driver Ben Flory. Ben, still 3 races to go, off to Chicago next week, then Michigan, then we close it off at Interlagos. How much of a confidence booster does this act for you in finishing up front for the last trio of races?
It's a huge confidence boost. Specifically for me, given this is my last run in CIL, this whole last run of April is, the last ride for me here, and not just in Formula College, but also sports cars when we go to Nords at the end of the month. So, I would have loved to get on the win tonight, the last run at my home race. We gave everything, but came in short. But thankfully, we still got races like Chicago. We got a race like Michigan, and I feel really confident on the ovals there. And Interlagos last year, we had the technical issue, and then we ran almost through the whole field, almost to a podium. So I don't know about Chicago next week. I'm gonna have to, pull out the nice $12 out of the bank account and see how fast we can learn that for next week. But the 2 races after that, though, I feel really confident we could pull something out. And even though we didn't win tonight, but we could, really end the season on a high note, considering the struggles we've been having these past couple weeks. So I feel really confident, but we'll see. I'll let the racing gods decide that one.
Still absolutely a drive worth celebrating, and some of the most fun watching for us in the booth. Ben, any shout outs here before we kick you out?
Yeah, for sure. Gotta give a shout out, first of all, to my mom and dad. I don't think they're watching right now, but they also had to put up with me, grinding out for these races, and especially for Glen. I was definitely practicing a bit more than usual, given it was the last run. So appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to go race and put on the show and compete at the level that I do. I appreciate it. And a big shout out to all my folks over at O'Connell Sim Sports, both the Enduro team, Riley, Ryan, Aiken over there as well, and also some of the folks we've been helping to gather up here on the CIL side. Folks like Jake, who you'll be talking to in P3, and also some other guys on the team alongside Andrew and Joseph, and we got so many guys we've been working with to really help bring up the pace and really make FC just a better series overall, in terms of the competition and the speed. So it's great, we get the ability to race with those guys and practice and learn different things. I could definitely say, learning from those guys all season, it's definitely made me a better driver, not just in FC, but in just in iRacing and sim in general. So big shout out to them. And of course, last but not least, a huge shout out to Marist University, Red Fox Nation. Trying for the win tonight, especially, given the struggles we've been having in some of the athletics departments. But it's great. It's always great to put on represents for Red Fox Nation up in Poughkeepsie, give the Northeast and New York State Suns to smile about. So big shout out to them, and if we get the opportunity to represent the school, it's always awesome. So yeah, that's my shout outs.
That's Marist University's Ben Flory in a very rock solid second place finish. Ben, thank you so much. Stand by for P3. Jake Cummins with Cade.
Mr. Jake Cummings, welcome up to the booth. I don't think P3 was exactly what you wanted, but still a very solid run. Kind of walk us through what happened there. About those last 15 laps or so, you were right on the bumper and, just weren't able to get up there and battle with Ben and Clint.
Oh, well, I mean, I can tell you what happened on lap 28 going into the bus stop. I don't know, I like overslowed for it, and then on the exit I got better turning than I thought I was gonna get on that left curb on the start of the exit of the corner. I took way too much of it, nearly bent it, saved it, but I scraped the right side of my car against the retaining wall, and it gave me right side damage. It wasn't visible, I couldn't find it on the car, but it wasn't repairable, and it lost me like 7-8 tenths a lap at least. So it was and it felt like it got progressively worse as well. So yeah, I really kicked myself over that after the BSU cars had their Wi-Fi go down because of their tornado warning. Hope they're all right. But I was thinking, oh man, I would have had a lead. I was ahead of Ben and Clint by like 5 seconds at that point because I started on the primaries, which ended up working really well. So I was kind of kicking myself because I've been wanting to try to win one of these. They're so difficult to win with Alif and Kale and everyone else being so competitive in these, and the ovals being so crazy. So yeah, that's what happened. I mean, I was honestly lucky to have been ahead of them and still be near them for as long as I was, because I mean, you saw the gap at the end. It was like 16 seconds when I was ahead of them by 5. So I lost about 20-something seconds in 20-something laps. So yeah, not great. But I guess fortune was on my side in some other way to still get a podium. It's been a rough last like 5 ever since Suzuka when some things happened on lap 1. Just not been so great for me. Even when I get on the podium, I'm not on the podium. So yeah, it's good to actually be here, and hopefully I'll stay here this time. We'll see come like Sunday probably. But yeah, thank you guys for all that you do. And oh wait, who's Jackson Lambros? I love your profile picture, man. That's really cool.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we're happy to put on the show for you. It's always fun to watch you guys. It's always fun to call these FC races. Something that I do want to ask about real quick. You mentioned biting that curb. It seemed like there were a lot of spots that were super treacherous, especially exit of, I think it was turn 7, and then getting through that last couple of complexes. How hard were those spots when those tires started to wear and you really started slip sliding around?
The wear honestly wasn't that bad. The only thing you really had to look out for was maybe where even is turn 7? I'm trying to think. I had to bring up the.
I want to say it's the heel of the boot.
Okay, the 180 degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the toe, the little hairpin.
Yeah. Okay, so that one was the toughest spot on old tires because you needed to be in second to get the exit, but it really wanted to get loose on you there. So you needed to not overdrive the center, so you weren't going too fast with too much rotation to then get that snap. So that was definitely manageable. The worst part was the cold tires. They were like exceptionally bad. Regardless of which tire you were on, you have to underdrive it by like crazy, and it was like a totally different driving style. The first lap or two, honestly, with the first lap was just really bad. So that was the worst of it. But there definitely were a lot of tricky spots on the track with the curbs and the bus stop, and how close the retaining walls were if you dipped the tire in the grass or ran a little wide. Yeah, and then anyone who lost control and slapped the wall, I'm sure just came back onto the track or something and collected a few others or something. But yeah, well, I don't know. I'm guessing. I just saw a lot of people didn't finish. So I mean, some stuff had to have happened. I'll have to watch it back. But yeah, it's really just. I was talking with Clint about it too, and we were just like, yeah, the most important thing in these cars is to have a competitive pace, but don't overdrive the thing, because the pace will come to you if you're patient, and then the tires will wear a little better for you, and you'll capitalize on other people's mistakes. But this is one of the tracks that's difficult to do that, because if you don't drive it perfectly on the limit, you might underdrive it, and then hit a curve you don't want to, like that one in the bus stop. So yeah, it was a tricky track, tricky night. Really fun combo though. I haven't done this one before, so. Yeah, glad we tried it out.
Well, I know you wanted a couple more spots, but still, congratulations on the podium. Before we let you go for the night, anyone you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'll shout out Converse Esports for watching and supporting me. I'll shout out my fiance who's always watching my streams. And I'll shout out Techsport Racing and Techsport Academy for all we're doing to bridge the gap from sim to reality. And I'll, of course, always shout out you guys. This is, you take some free time out of your nights once a week to do this. I know it's not easy, so really appreciate it and look forward to more.
All right, well, thank you. You go ahead and have a great night, and hopefully next week we'll be talking to you as well.
We'll see.
That was Jake Cummings, brought it home third after a intense race at the Glen. Unfortunately, damage early kept him from contending. Brought it down to Clint Halterman, Ben Fiore, two names we mentioned right off the bat, and I have to imagine that same group of guys is going to be competitive at the rest of the road courses this season.
No, absolutely. And my brain is still going around what kind of damage control our Muhammad Alif is in here. And we've got a really good mix up here for the end. We've got a natural, we've got a really intense, very easy to battle street circuit, a high speed, very hack racing-esque oval, and then we've got, arguably the greatest home of motor racing, one of the 7 wonders of the world for racing. So, but looking at where Alif's strengths are there, you go back to Long Beach. We know how he's been on street circuits. We know where that aggression can get him. Ovals are still kind of that last frontier. That's not to say he hasn't been fast. He just hasn't won there yet. And I think you can give me 10 different guys that I think could potentially win in 2 weeks at Michigan. I really think the only place that's genuinely an advantage for him is going to be Interlagos. And I think when you are, when you're Kale, when you're now, I guess, Clint, like you're thinking about how you can deal that damage before there's that exclamation point for AMA's performance at the end of the year. So I think a lot of big performance opportunities here, but it is absolutely going to be crunch time in these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to go into Interlagos being any close in the points at all. You want to know where you stand going into that last race of the season. Let's take a look at the results here from the Esports Eagles Classic, presented by TAMUT. Your top 10 at Watkins Glen. It was Clint Halterman from UNC Charlotte, beating out Ben Fiore from Marist. Jake Cummings from Converse brings it home third. Behind him, it's Esteban Munoz, best finish of the season for Florida International, and Aiken Lamar rounding out the top 5 for Howard Community College. Thomas Crump holds off teammate Andrew Burrell for the 6th spot. Burrell gets 7th, just ahead of Grant Schiller from St. Clair College. Then it's Andrew Voigt finishing P9, and Riley Birkins, first top 10 of the season for New England College.
In 11th, Adrian Tubakovic still might be his best results of the season so far. In 11th, St. Clair College teammate Keegan Calick just behind in 12th. Garrett Greathouse was running solid in the top 10, had to stop for repairs. 5 laps out for Kansas State. Ryan Whitlock, fairly solid recovery drive with all things considered. Cade, your guy from UAH, gets home in 14th. Jason Wallet for Drexel in 15th. Carson Wohlers for Paul Smith's College in 16th. Couple of Ball State guys here, all the Ball State guys. Cale Davidson, R. Muhammad Alif, Dylan Beatty, 17th, 18th, and 19th respectively. Jamie Palencia for Fisher is in 20th. Cade?
21st, Nick Henley from Ball State, one of the guys caught up in that power outage. Wyatt Burton, 22nd. Nick Stockner, 23rd after a couple of spins. His teammate Adam Willoughby winds up 24th, and their teammate Drew Williams, 25th, 47 laps down. Lucas Moody out early, 26th. Marlo Duncan caught up in an early incident, finishes 27th. He, along with Jacob Dick. Christian Hill, taken out at the very beginning, winds up 29th. He was involved in a crash. So was Joseph Grijalva, who winds up 58 laps down for Purdue. And rounding out the field in 31st, Ohir Mirza from St. Clair College, unfortunately, crashes out on lap 1. Caden Hughes does not make the field at all. And that rounds out your starting results. Doing a little bit of mental math, that should leave it at about a 30-point gap between Alif Halterman for the points going into the Chicago Street Course next week. Davidson and Halterman will be about tied, and they will have a pretty big gap on Jake Cummings, who should jump up into the 4th spot, but all within 100 points of each other with 3 races to go. It's absolutely mathematically possible for a shakeup. That's the big picture. Within the small picture, you've got guys that want to win one. Ben Fiore, in his last season, he wants to get a win before this one is out, like he was talking about. Some other guys still trying to rebound from bad seasons, right? We talk about Dylan Beatty. It seems like Ryan Whitlock keeps getting caught up in crashes. All of these guys, they just want to finish one of these out, and they've got 3 very different opportunities to do so. So, Jackson, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you now. What are you thinking we're going to see? We're going to a street course, incredibly tight. Do you think it's another opportunity for attrition, or will it be a race that comes down to a lot of different guys fighting it out on the lead lap?
Damage control for Muhammad Alif, and I mean that in a championship. I mean that for the championship, and I mean literally in the race. Keep the wheels straight, keep the wings on it, finish and get points, right? I think everybody else, though, is going to be throwing Hail Marys, and I think that is going to be what ultimately is going to be the equalizer here, because I'm not even saying that, AMA might get caught up in that, but we might see a yellow, and if that instantly brings the gap back down to ground zero. So I think we're going to see some really, really aggressive driving. I can only expect that AMA is going to be on the defensive, so it's going to be really, really exciting to see who brings the fight to Ball State. And our Muhammad Alif could be one of the championship contenders. Genuinely could be someone we have not seen up at the front of the field. It feels like with a track like Chicago and a group like these guys, genuinely anything could happen.
Something interesting also to note about that Chicago race as well, it'll be a doubleheader with the Cup Series. On Monday, the Garage College Cup Series will be running that same Chicago street course, so these guys will get a little bit of a preview on Monday night. Then they'll come down here on Wednesday and try to settle it in a $1.18 IndyCar. Did the same thing at Iowa, and it seemed to work out well for Clint Halterman, winning the Cup race and then the Formula College race. He's going to try to do that again. I think he's a favorite for that Cup race, but also coming in with a lot of momentum. He mentioned a little bit of a conservative driving style helped him to a win here at the Glen. So we'll see if he carries that over to Chicago, or if he gets a little bit more up on the wheel and tries to drive it just a little bit more aggressively.
Going to be really, really exciting to see. Cade, let's bring it home.
Well, that will be all from us. If you've got nothing else, thank you guys for watching. I know it's a little bit of a later night, but always exciting action here on the Collegiate iRacing League YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed the Esports Eagle Classic presented by Texas A&M Texarkana, and we hope you'll join us next week for a barn burner at the Chicago Street Course. From all of us up here in the production studio, joined by Jackson Lambros, I'm Cade